The bond system adds its use of than than than, can be coordinated with the use of the attack spectrum. Zhao Ge smirked, and then the point of this sword was faster than the other sword, who brought with him the violence Yu Yue. Zhao Ge remembered something and told the system right, and did not just say that you still have the right to buy specific items. The system of special items is about to appear, you only have a 10-minute time to choose overdue as giving up. Zhao Ge silently thought that the rare item of the reward through the S level also needed to choose. Among thousands of good things, only children can choose from the minor. Of course, they want a sock, but combined is 75,000 values of experience. However, Zhao Ge is silently thinking if this normal person is a large amount of money in the basic pocket, so that it is not forced to use up, but for us to say that the warmth of 20 years cannot use the value of my experience today. I have to get it back in one day, 75,000. I don't even blink. Seeing that the mother rushed to me not to harm my child, suddenly the surface of the water rises up everything that seems to be attacking on the other mother and children. Seeing the small woman hugging the child's child, he was scared to say that this was the innocent kid. Someone shielded their mother and daughter to block the flow of water. Is Lu Zhao Ge? He turned back to tell back. The mother hurriedly hugged her child and did not forget to turn back to thank the austerities. The green demon is opening. The barbaric mouth is the level 21 below, is the 20th level. At this time, Lu Zhao Ge looked up and looked at him from a level 21, a 20 level child. Then they were like a tiger and rushed to the leader who led the guitar, so he could not rush to let me see who was so big. Then she went to go, based on the devil's bow dared to hinder our eating. At this time, Lu Zhao Ge still stood there in the water. Seeing her face, she suddenly startled unusual changes. Then she was fascinated by that beauty and told the boys to go too much before the confusion of the two demons around her. Then she fell in love with her blushing face and didn't look very good. Hearing that, Lu Zhao Ge smiled and asked again, so you want to eat me or what your mouth you want to eat with? Then she laughed and smiled. Then suddenly her hair flew hovering from the devil face and told the sauce. Hearing these words, Lu Zhao Ge just laughed and said it was not the way we expected. Then just one of his arms made a flame exploded and he pointed towards those people. But tell me, I still think you will choose to eat more smoothly. At this time she also used her stinking mouth and exhaled to kill me to find death. Seeing the love of Zhao Ge also did not delay quickly to produce water power, so on from his hand, he gradually shot out. On this side, the two was about to attack. He had to eat the technique of the Grand Master, who had not been able to do anything but had been betrayed several times more than the water, so he spit out from his mouth with love, causing her to suddenly cry out her eyes. Zhao Ge did not wait for the love of the spirit to be able to recover the sword straight to the closer, causing her to be able to lose balance, so she was about to fall down to Zhao Ge. But the sword has not yet touched the love, the bar of the beam of the baby rushed to rush, to want to abundant the body. Lu attorney felt strange to look to see the bad mouth of the terrorist, which had reached nearly 4 fangs that were long and horrible, but the road was the Grand Master of Mo Men, ANH. It was not easy to cope with such a way. He jumped up to the mouth now, only soil. Hung had just escaped from the door of Kue when Ku Chu appeared immediately after Zhao Ge. These two monsters seemed to want to eat with him real, and he had to be tens of times the eye of the eye, but the long teeth were still pointed. It could not be counted by Zhao Ge. The villagers stood there to see that Ku Chu was relying on the unexpected opportunity to take Zhao Ge, so everyone panicked. Everyone gaped, her mouth just now. He was saved by his mother in the arms of. Her mother shouted carefully, "Kidney Lu." Zhao Ge turned to the bottomless mind of Ku Chu smirked to answer peacefully. After that, Zhao Ge not only did not run, but stood still with one hand that made the giant purple monster be knocked out of Zhao Ge's spirit, as if the blade was still in the air. The girl just now in the arms of her mother saw Zhao Ge answered that she was sure that there was a way to throw the other monster, so she could not help but admire her eyes. Her mother felt that she was young, but she fell in love with her too, and she urged her to hear her mother, and then turned to say that the beautiful person was so beautiful. So she must be the singer of the mother, spraying the glue without knowing which she would fall for her life to be reincarnated into her child. Lu Zhao Ge gently landed on the ground to use 2 more ground to make the dust and dust of the Lamao sum. Zhao Ge using the cold eyes to look back at the monster to be level 20, and then favor a 2-low hierarchy. The arbitrary use of the 2 skills will consume 1 part of the energy to speed. Love. Tu regained the spirit of standing up still in the protection of the aggressive QA, with the surrounding tail angrily shouting, "Is just a scene and dare to play me." So it seems to have to respond to this part of your mind already. Tearing him to give me this girl so screaming that the shape of the shape just now looked beautiful. He was regretted that he did bad deeds. Kue and Ku Chu received orders from the back of her love to rush straight up the appearance she stood below, to order 2 giant monsters to be cool, but joke. Lu Zhao Ge on this side did not move anymore. He used his friendly eyes to look at her smiling. Attacking the attack is too slow, it will not feel. Zhao Ge just said that swinging his bones immediately, a white mist appeared to cover the space around the surrounding space. Kue and Ku Chu were rushing to disoriented because the fog was obscured. He could not identify Zhao Ge now. She loved the Tu seeing him out of this mist so spicy and widened his eyes and shouted quickly he wanted to escape. How can I get stronger and how to get stronger, and you can't always get stronger. After smirking, the Zhao Ge continued to produce hydraulic tricks. Hydraulic, as the name implies, in a moment of all steam will be put down in an instant, when there has been nothing to do with any hair of Zhao Ge and the beams and the shapes are so strongly hit by the hug weight of the ground to create a large shaking of dust and dust. Lu Zhao Ge was handsome in the black smoke raised his hand to gently knock out the skill of the black squid. After a while, it became a tight lane with the beams and the shocking of them in pain, and threading continuously without doing anything. Zhao Ge too strong. They were basically just a shrimp for him to fight with. Him was the biggest mistake in their lives. Lu Zhaoge did not get dirty at all. Step by step approaching the love where she left the two monsters behind, struggling with hydraulic ink and dew to the body. Love. Tu saw that his two henchmen were crushed and broken and panicked for a long time. Zhaoge and Scales ink around to be satisfied with the victory, and ask how to love you, now want to eat me. Lu Zhaoge, so painful. I want to draw blood and start the force of love to catch up to cover the body. I want to bring you to tear out and keep you awake. I want to let you look at me, to eat every piece of meat of you. Attorney General stroked his chin with sharp mirrors, with sharp eyes closed, and then provocative words so cruelly made me remember the happy day with some foreign friends. They also ate the frog like that. Zhao Ge said, the more angry she was, very bitter, and now she just wanted to chew his head with a loophole, to die with two bright eyes and the red, hearted face. He could not hear him. Tu Yan wanted to attack, making him a little narcissistic. Expressing the love she loved, did not know that my heavenly power was water or how to spray the poisonous mist needed water as a conductor. There is a problem, huh? The poisonous fog also released it. And now Zhao Ge said she also realized that she was about to spend, and then opened her mouth and glared at him. Lu Zhaoge raised his hand to order two streams of power to join, together with the fog of her immediately hydraulic, like each tornado, rolled back. She loved the TU on this side, and jerked the hard glue for a minute. She was not sure that she had run her hand with the long swipe. At this time she was afraid of being able to prepare her ability to prepare for the fog of her hydraulic masters to hit his back. Each mist pierced through the monk made her unable to hold up and staggered later. Cough with his own fog attacked the more hydraulic love that he could not stand up again, and his legs were melted, making the burning all over the body began to emit a mysterious green film. A love of a love sitting down on the blue light layer, has become a ball of protection to protect her love from the guard of Zhao Ge, who has not yet died. But how much beautiful love is the other? Now, the catastrophe is so miserable, she is scared, and then she uses pitiful eyes to pray for the way to live. Please forgive me. I can do whatever my body you want to play with whatever you want to play. Not to let her say all Zhao Ge spoke out, to block the next words that made her tremble on the ground, to say a little bit of joy. I actually had a lot of love, and your body also had 10 attractive parts. But now, the woman only affects my sword speed, only. Lu Zhaoge wavered with a protective line immediately, and made making it clear from the guard to see the expression of Zhao Ge. On the ground, there is only the cold of the TU and two giant henchmen. But Kuchu was still moving and trembling immediately, and his eyes lightly lit up the teeth that started to start looking for Revan G targets. The Sinjar was so great that the little girl was saved in the morning, still standing there watching each time of the battle, seeing the Grand Master. Then also happily shouted loudly towards Kuchu and Ku-A, but did not know the danger was still lurking. Has identified the target of eating the purpose of resuscitation to take Revan G on Zhaoge, red eyes flashing, to emit a wheezing sound. If one had opened his mouth to use the other 8 faster as lightning, he rushed to swallow the girl a silk from his mouth, but not normal silk, but at the head, like 3 or 4 nails, were extremely sharp. A screaming sound rang out of the panic girl with bloody gore ranging all over, making her extremely scared. Quickly shaping the spirit of looking in front of Lu Zhaoge, supported her a technique, and blood just thrown all over there. She was still afraid of her, a little trembling her voice. Seeing his silk shoot straight at Zhao Ge, Chu also panicked, began to retreat more dust, when it rushed to the fastest. Still a lot of glowing eyes, like fireflies, also showed the fear of Attorney General using ink scales do not need to be measured, still in the middle of its rotten mouth, now can run in the sky and escape. The great body of Kuchu was divided in half to win the way for Zhao Ge to look straight to the other side. After finishing Zhao Ge also started to see the pain that was gone from being shown through Zhao Ge, and an hour and injured his hand and grabbed the strong silk and pulled out so many bloody bleeding also caused him to tremble himself. Hu had a crying emanating from below. Zhao Ge curiously down to see and seeing that she had just been saved by him twice, crying Hu K for the new injured soot at this girl. Attorney General immediately fell down near the girl, raised her hand to release a little hydraulic smile to see the gentle voice making her suddenly stopped, the tears of tears. Seeing the drops of Zhao Ge, she made her stunned, her mouth wide open. Hand softly touched the water drop. Momenheim uttered, "Wow, so beautiful," smile like an angel in the other water, made the viewer uttered love to death, so cute. Take one Lu Zhaoge to use the water to move from the village, she watched shouting, "Big brother." The villagers saw him leaving, in turn kneeling in thanksgiving to thank the practitioner to save his life, to save the lives. Great grace has nothing to repay, whether a person will ask Zhao Ge. But Zhao Ge now has the power to burn the love of the monk and the Chu under the voice of his voice echoing the duty. Lu Zhaoge sat on the flying carpet preparing to leave the other village in his hand, holding the costume of the old lady who was given by him. Looking at this scene, a bit of metamorphosis, whoever finished beating the clothes of the girl's daughter, they still raised and muttered to the style, but this material was not very good clothes, and skirts of the average are all yellow, colored products, to find the opportunity to sell. So in Zhao Ge's head, showing the scene of her sister Dong Li, and I love this tight dot anyway. This is too big. It will be too big. It will be too big. It will be too big. So it will be too big. It will be too big. So in my mind, I thought it was not right. But this face sometimes was about to spray my nose blood. Remove that short cloth to one side. Zhao Ge walked to the edge of the carpet overlooking the village. Seeing everyone still bowing to them, they are still thanking me. This is Dan Chao. This place is quite remote, but the villagers here are very united and emotionally living. Zhao Ge to shake hands, behind the back towards the sun, in the heart of the monk of Taiyin. Hu Yan. The world will not become a fairly stronger than ordinary people, and the cycles of Than Chao, they believe unconditionally that the swordsman will protect them, so that if they hold the sword, they cannot protect them. They cannot protect the sword. They cannot protect the sword. They can protect the sword. They can protect the sword. They do not protect the sword. They do not protect the sword. Back to the item, Zhao Ge took out the pocket of the muttering marble. The ring has one eye like a pearl glowing like Than Anh Jack. The 5 eyes are located between the 2 sides, a few small yellow twisted rings around the Zhao Ge suddenly stared at the mat in his hand, starting to glow on the strand GG spirit of the bracelet that was gradually being transformed. Something Zhao Ge also seemed to be looking forward to. From the round, there were only a few stars even more poor than me. So Zhao Ge slammed his face to look at the small spiritual jelly in his hand, because he expected himself to love the alum. He looked so delicious. Zhao Ge continued to reach out and inside the light of the other round and opened whistling with something big. A Hyuga skull is now really real, and Zhao Ge thought what was good to find a good thing. It was quite a short time after he held the skull towards the sky, before using the magic force to burn the rest of your Revenji. I told you to help you, and then every part of the skull kept melting into the air to fly away. The next dish imprints this purple moon is the official member of the Purple Moon Festival. Zhao Ge coldly assessed that his decision to kill was not wrong, but went back and forth to be disappointed enough to find something good who was so desperate there was no other than this bracelet was a little poor, but the clothes were wearing on the other person, who could only see the system for me a little surprise or not. Hand touched the air to hand over the task. Just called this system immediately appeared on the large screen. This reward will notify through the turntable to get the reward to wish you lucky. The reward of this orange task will be divided into the best level of the nail is the worst. Please start the rotation table. After that, the Hyuga system in front of the headline. Zhao Ge was not satisfied with this big scolded hand. You divided it to me only a little like this is reasonable. The system responds with a small screen, so reasonably makes Zhao Ge even more angry where you study where the humor, Lu Zhao Ge was angry and stepped on the carpet that was like a monkey's ass and scolded the system. Even so, based on my predestined relationship that obtained the bonus of the armor is not easy. So that you know what the European emperor, I am poked. The rotation of the system starts to move the lotus in the middle, emitting splendid glory of the sky. Zhao Ge gripped his hand and swallowed. His saliva was about to stop. The rotation is slowing down the light. Zhao Ge expects himself to have a little more hope with the treasures of what is important to remind 3 times. I hope to have armor, so you should go out. The turning turns will be slower and will be touched by the armor. From the ground I heard Zhao Ge's curses above here. He was hugging his head and wanting to smash the damn system and then made him the main NMN but gave him this thing. Zhao Ge dropped his hand from his head to look at the board in front of him. He was still a little hard to describe now, so he was happy or so sad. If he stopped the nonsense. He didn't need it. He was very spicy. His eyes were round, but he could not play it from the beginning. Seeing Zhao Ge seemed frustrated and answered, don't think much. Zhao Ge raised his hand to pick up the security from the turning ring that was gradually lowering and not forgetting to remind this system do not think of losing my reward and then want to run. The reward just reached its light shining. Zhao Ge's face made him shocked. On the red sandpaper of the notification system, it can copy all the special items in the world that you contact through can only use once Zhao Ge to read. You must suddenly say this cheek is a treasure at another level of hack and explain it simply, if this world has a hacking props. Take this to be able to hack 1111. Zhao Ge stopped. Quite surprisingly, the hacking props of the world protagonist not at home. That is the props that the main character of the Huyan world in the 4 great realms brought on you. Yue also has the inside of it that contains great secrets anyway. It is also the only superficial product from the ancient trend of this world. Most Tine Day. Zhao Ge's hand started dancing and smirked in the heart if the main character has, so that even if the child is chosen by Tine Day, we must have. Returning to her to touch me a little anyway. The 4 great king also has 5 common sense. Receiving this interesting system reward, Zhao Ge also showed a satisfied smile, so he should be promoted and so on. And so that Lu Zhao Ge sat on the carpet of cultivation, like some of the monks from level 20 to level 21 to level 21. Opening his eyes, he felt a bad exclamation of his exclamation, after the breakthrough of level 20 of the spiritual value, increased the ability to control the water. Also strong, many other gifts did not need to be said now, if he met a female love TU on level 20. Like the other hand, using the empty-handed hand, can also slash. Anyway, we are a male who cultivates the law of purple level, and does not know if the next books are enhanced or not. After all, Taiyin Huyan Giji now is the highest level of the Oranji level law, which is only available in Taiyin. That day, the great superficial of the ancient period of the ancient Taiyin day. The founder of the founder so far soon lost it. Since the ancient fashion, the Huyan Giji has continuously appeared talented money like the stars so bright. But to say which star is the brightest, it is determined to be the owner. Legend has it that his father was human, his mother was love. The 2 people get married, but it is difficult to give birth to children whether they can give birth blood or human or love. But this owner is a love for love. Since childhood, his body has been weak with a strand. Disease, even if he is a spirit of panacea, there is no effect of his body. No one thinks that he can live and be born with his life is his destiny. But a person like that not only survived, but also hard to open a new era in the ancient trendy door of the spiritual practice. Then now those who have a normal route of life cannot step into this beautiful spiritual practitioner. And he has created a decision. Even if he is a normal quality, he can cultivate the opportunity for many people with normal qualities. His own strength changed an entire weak ethnic group. This was the creation that he gave to the human world. The so-called Thane that day is that under the blue sky the power needed as in the religion is that it is the most Thane day that year is in Then Chao Thane, which is placed in the word Thane in this person's name. This half, lover in the 8th realm, is called the Great Holy, on the 8th realm called the Emperor, so the people call him the Emperor of the Fairy of the Mountains. The next day from the early morning, the sun had just dawned. Lu Zhaoge also arrived. On the cliff in the distance, there is the figure of the female scum on me, saying that the sword is fiery. Not looking carefully. Maybe this is a man who is sitting there to practice there anymore. The silhouette of Li Nanwei was happy with the eyes, and 2 grapefruit towards the distance muttering to him. After saying that, he smirked a whistling, so he touched the ground without a protective pants inside, probably showed all the hot goods, and then the 2 fruits were not the other 2 melon, then shook it, and then burned the viewer's eyes. Not joking. Grandmaster Li Nanwei from afar waved to Zhao Ge enthusiastically. Those innocent expressions and 2 big melons were rushing to seem to grab the treasure. Lu Chaoge on this side saw that Li Nanwei was not happy at all, but still sweating in the face of the crazy woman, probably not always waiting for me. Li Nanwei ran, too curious to ask the Grand Master of the Grand Monk. Then in his heart, thinking in the 2nd realm, he could reach the 2nd realm to have a day. The speed of breaking this scene among the fellow disciples of both Sword Tong, no one can reach, whether it is me or Yu Yue. I was engrossed in thinking that Zhao Ge spoke up, making her startled. Li Nanwei, what happened? Li Nanwei no changes the innocent face in the topic of the main thing. We really need to find the Grand Master. Immediately she put the sword on her shoulder and then pulled out this sword and did not light this girl to carry. The other 2 melons was very energetic and then wore more swords, so good. Or really. The Grand Master would like to teach the only point now to be the sword and the other face, like stars staring at the other pair of terrorist melons to taste. The one must remember the greasy life to know. Knowing Lu Zhaoge hard, the mind was slightly jerked. This woman was really like her father and were all sword. She died with the father and son. Her father and son have encountered all the evil stories that you are going to go to the resort now. Lu Zhaoge stared at Li Nanwei, thinking it was because the young sword was often looking for people who were all over the world. But after Sorton Victor, all the people who changed their words to think back before I have decided to fight with that sword. So when faced with the challenge of the daughter, Kiev, Ton Lu Zhaoge stared at the piece. Identification is definitely the opponent, and then slightly nodded in the agreement. Handsome also agreed on the request of Nanwei to be happy to look at Zhao Ge, but the author was also so oddly tightened his face into the heavy mountain groove on Li Nanwei. Zhao Ge seriously continued, but the duty was conditional. Seeing that handsome boys demanding the conditions of the way also seriously answered that they only need to be too much. Zhao Ge stood in the sun, and the leaves of the leaves falling through the sun made the scenery of the male ahead more and more sharp. The low voice of the duty to launch only one sword and stop there. Li Nanwei is not only not uncomfortable, but laughing. The monkey agreeing to be a sword is enough and can prevent her itching already. The man who can form a sword mind in the 1st realm. He really could not stand it anymore. He really wanted to slash you. But Li Nanwei showed a perverted face, a bit crazy, but he was still absolutely greasy. Attorney General pointed towards the ring. Followed me. The training ground of Mo Men in front of Li Nanwei, nodded quickly and quickly ran after, fearing Zhao Ge to Chan Ge. His mind not to fight with her anymore. At ring at this time, Xiaoqiu is being trained by Dongli and Luobing with Heiting, standing there to see. Seeing that Xiaoqiu seems to do not very good, Luobing opened his voice gently and walked up in front of Xiaoqiu so much. Seeing the 2nd sister who taught the sword like this, Luobing has just pulled out the sword that made people admire the beauty of the flowers. Each of her tricks released butterflies, but the beauty of the beauty. Gently loved the pink and hated the elegant body of the slender sword dance as the ideal image of Xiaoqiu, but not anymore. The eyes of the little Chu lit up. The 2nd sister was very dangerous, saying that the other 2 small hands were constantly patting each other with the appearance of this girl who was too in love. And Dong Li stood next to the exclamation, not bad, Hei Ting, only the eyes of a mouth. Zhao Ge elid Li Nanwei to come in time, as Luobing showed the beauty of the Momen's atmosphere that made others admire. Zhao Ge reached out to invite guests, Li Nanwei for an hour and 2 melons go ahead, and she could also run after this scene. So hot, admin also felt that she was about to go away for a while. Seeing Lu Zhaoge return to Luobing with Dongli and Heiting simultaneously returning to greet the master of the Master Sin Ger, Luobing saw Li Nanwei walking next to Zhao Ge to her right eye, and what day she felt she was older. She had to recognize the 2 melons of this Li Wei of the absolute heavy. Luobing reflects this way of massa, is not useful, must be helped by others. Li Nanwei has just greeted the eyes and immediately Heiting, but both seem to be very friendly with each other in front of Heiting. There is a little scale. Curious, Li Nanwei turned to Zhao Ge's shoulder to ask Lu Nanwei's Grand Master Li Nanwei a little about the air inside the disciples' gas. Lu Zhao Ge turned to look at Heiting, confirmed that it was a little small thing. Heiting saw 2 people staring at him and said something, but his aura made him a bit curious. Zhao Ge turned to answer Li Nanwei Bon before he did not believe anything but destiny. Li Nanwei was quite surprised with this answer, and continued to ask, so according to the Grand Master, what was called destiny. This side looked at his brother with other eyes that he only saw that he was smiling metamorphosis. Zhao Ge walked in the sunlight shining through each interstitial smile that made the sisters push over the horizontal alcove. The destiny is the excuse for the weak is the humility of our strong destiny, because we are not due to heaven. Li Nanwei was shocked and startled to listen to this sentence, and also sweating, saying that the words were not even through it, or this sentence was real, or my destiny was because we were not due to heaven. Just walked to the middle of Zhao Ge. The fan danced a few rounds to take out the sword in the blue light. His hair flew in the evil wind, though simple and not simple, saw that he was not ordinary voice, but warm. He took place to the south, because she invited her. On the large ring of light shining by the light, Zhao Ge along with the monk stood next to the disciples to watch the game. Dong Li suddenly understood when he came here to give Bing Nhi standing next to Dong Li. He secretly understood that she was surprised to fight with the big breasts in the opposite of the Chu, very excited to look at Zhao Ge with his sparkling eyes. The master of the master wanted to show it again. Nan Wei, with a big sword, struggled behind her back to bring 2 fingers in front of her. Accumulation of the spirit to look straight towards Zhao Ge. The guest said that the Grand Master was now in the second realm, so I also suppressed the monk to the realm of Li Nanwei, which really dropped to the second realm of the first floor. First floor, first floor, first floor, first floor, first floor. Dong Li stupidly looked at Zhao Ge with round eyes and a rounded mouth, but thinking in her heart was contrary to her expression, and going down the mountain to reach the second realm. When Zhao Ge saw Dong Li Anh's eyes widening, his eyes, he was confusing white eyes at this little girl who showed a familiar face, so we were not happy. So happy or something. Li Nanwei did not extend the time. She reached out to her head to grab the handle of the sword behind her back, pulling up a smile, and then Li Nanwei spoke up. The Lu Mon. Li Nanwei then gently pulled out the sword with blue light. Completely on the blade, she swung a sword across her face. When Li Nanwei pulled out the sword out of the blade's blade, appeared the blue spirit streams from covering it in the sun that was suddenly appeared to have a lot of snow, make Zhao Ge a bit surprised and raise his head to look at the snowflakes. On this side, Xiaoqiu excitedly raised his hand in front of the air to take the snow and falling down the girl excitedly shouting so beautifully. But Bing Nhi quickly realized that the vigilant was completely not the snowflakes. Only Dong Li is silent to observe everything that does not speak, until he knows the situation, that everything is slowly speaking. This is the snow. Looking idea throughout this sky is the heart of the daughter of Bing Nhi and the Chu. The more surprisingly, looking at her eyes, looking at her heart. Zhao Ge looked at the movement as well as the situation of Li Nanwei and then said admiration as expected of her, so I should have a move. Zhao Ge calmly spoke up with the sword that was firmly held in his hand after talking with Li Nanwei. Zhao Ge gently moved his leg to one side. Immediately the bowl of 8 trigrams was triggered immediately around the 2 people radiating extremely beautiful blue light. At this time Zhao Ge has just revealed the delightful thought of thinking. Then suddenly Zhao Ge gently swung the sword forward with a terrible power to form a blind black smoke towards Li Nanwei. But she raised the vigilance that she could recognize what he was going to do with Li Nanwei, excitedly swinging the sword behind his head with a thick blue spirit covering her body. Li Nanwei, who wanted to break my sword mind, that was not so simple. This will be the strongest blow from Zhao Ge, also quickly rushed in, the mind constantly calculating the daughter of the 10-year-old sword of the Ton Yu Yue, who was the 4-year-old practitioner, who was only 1 step away from the great distance of the great practice, while Zhao Ge was still in the minds of himself. On this side, Li Nanwei has decisively lowered a sword to tear in the air around the blade. There are countless rays of light forming her sword way towards Zhao Ge. Zhao Ge smirked when she saw that she was unfortunate to see her blow. We saw through her disadvantages for the same battle between her and Yu Yue in the previous life. 2 streams of terrible light intersects soil rocks splashing everywhere. It is also because of that battle that she and Yu Yue have become a real CP. Li Nanwei, who was defeated by Yue lying in the middle of the cold ground, and Yu Yue took the sword at the girl who was blushing at her. Zhao Ge rushed to Li Nanwei, who was burning atmosphere. He swung the sword along with the black air, which was thought to think so. This match from the beginning we used to hack. As soon as the 2 intersects with their own swords, all when the smoke melted was Li Nanwei and Zhao Ge peacefully landed on the ground because Zhao Ge had grasped all the weaknesses of Li Nanwei, so this match was easy to fight. Everyone after seeing that scene was extremely surprised, and cried out for a small voice, and Chu gasped and opened his mouth. Li Nanwei did not submit to her, glancing at Zhao Ge in astonishment. Everyone looked at it, thought it was a harmony, but in fact Zhao Ge had taken her card. He voiced his Li Nanwei, her lady dropped. Li Nanwei now realized that her card had disappeared since she suddenly shouted, "Do not submit back to look at." Zhao Ge biting my teeth uncomfortable, and he is only a little inferior to Zhao Ge with the martial of a smile. Gently at her in his hand is a card that just shook back and forth. Seeing that appearance, she immediately had a doubt, or he gave him a lot of stars. Li Nanwei no longer had a face, on the contrary. She looked at Zhao Ge with a more peaceful face, but no matter what he won, Li Nanwei clasped his head and bowed his head to perform the ceremony with Zhao Ge and spoke at the same time. Dong Li Drum is extremely proud to say that the Singer will not lose to Bing Nhi beside him, also admiring the Grand Master of the Priest, very dangerous. the small Chu dancing and jumping up and full of joy and exhortation. Li Nan Wei get her Huga sword to the ground to look straight towards Zhao Ge, but Li Nan Wei did not understand the mind skills experience. We did not lose to the Grand Master, but why Zhao Ge in his hand was still the card of Li Nan Wei. He put the card holding the card in his head and said that she had a loophole, trying to think about what I was to know was this loophole. Hearing that Li Nan Wei was a little surprised, she opened her eyes wide and looked at Zhao Ge, surprised to voices the Grand Master to grasp my loophole. Dong Li heard also extremely unexpected. Xiao Qiu did not understand anything, so he scratched his head extremely hard to understand the loophole. Particularly on the side of Bing Nhi did not understand what she thought, in the sense she covered her face with her hand and thought that it was embarrassed to die, and then said these words in front of the crowd. The image of her tone, she covered her mouth to teach her, every woman has 2 grapefruit and 1 cave to take advantage of it well. Bing Nhi recalled that she was ashamed to blush like that. She shook her head full of shyness, so it was difficult to speak out. What was Hating seeing the appearance of Bing Nhi? Her eyes widened her eyes and puzzled the small Chu, also waiting to look at Bing Nhi's voice and ask the sister's voice. So why? Bing Nhi saw that everyone widened her eyes and looked at her, even more ashamed that she said nothing. She secretly blamed her because she thought miscellaneous. Li Nan Wei suddenly recalled the position that Zhao Ge moved slightly before the match began, with the 8 trigrams surrounded by the 2 of them, suddenly awakened to that was lost. The pupils of Li Nan Wei shrinks in astonishment to look at Zhao Ge with the unbelievable thought right from the beginning, he has seen my disadvantages, and why Li Nan Wei now has a brighter face. She uses the eyes to look at Zhao Ge excitedly, thinking that this level of Lumon is a qualified in the field of swordsmanship has overcome her imagination. To overcome her imagination. Li Nan Wei now has the mind of her mouth holding the sword in her hand. After that I bowed at Zhao Ge. Xiao Qiu was young, heard the words, just now did not understand the question of wondering only the teacher and the Grand Master, who was teaching the other billionaire who was beside him to hear the question of Xiao Qiu, gently telling him that he understood that the girl of Kiev Xiao Qiu did not say that indiscriminately. But Dong Li on one side crossed his arms and spoke out to refute the sin. Indeed telling the girl to sword. The other sentence of Dong Li made the 2 Bing Nhi and the small Chu were amazed. Xiao Qiu heard even more excited than the little girl shouted at the Grand Master the first galaxy. The image of Zhao Ge Marshal, standing in the middle of the sun, shining on the face without the dead angle and the holy angle of the yellow leaf flying, so that the person who has just experienced is also very gentle, along with the voice of the little Chu. The Q must definitely become the second Grand Master. Zhao Ge gently approached Li Nan Wei ANH, bringing the card out in front of her intention to return, without the need for Zhao Ge to face, even though she was happy. But inside, silently calculating this important props of the props, seems to need more time. He looks at the copy speed that is displaying the number of 0.336%. Zhao Ge found that the copy speed was really too slow to be suspicious, or so it takes so much time. Maybe this MOC buy really has a great secret. Then he looked at Li Nan Wei holding the card in his hand, silently smiling. Not very good will not have a person's decoding, Mo Minhine here. Li Nan Wei, after carefully reviewed the card, immediately breathed out a sound, but it was still okay. Zhao Ge quickly captured the opportunity to ask for a common sense. Oh my Nan Wei, she valued it so that this mock buy is hidden. Something is not trivial. Or what's wrong? Li Nan Wei saw that Zhao Ge seemed to be interested in raising the card, slowly explaining that this MOC buy was indeed unable to collect in the store. This wooden card is that we get in the relic related to Tyne. That day, which is probably the item they left in the human world. In addition to being unable to collect in and out, it also has the ability to think about Zhao Ge when he hears he will close his eyes, and nodding a little bit interesting. This expression made Li Nan Wei a little stunned to see Zhao Ge looks like Li Nan Wei smiled, and then continued not really valuable just that. Yu Yue, the younger brother, was very interested in the most favorite, so I thought that after coming back to the sword, he would give him this object. Zhao Ge narrowed her eyes and looked at the smiling woman in front of the thought of whispering, this item will return to Yu Yue, but her smile is so considerate. Zhao Gu's face showed a horrific disgusting. He smirked the corner of his mouth to judge this Du child, but he was a billion-dollar child. Li Nan Wei also did not stay for a long time. She folded her hands to celebrate the fox. Do not let Li Nan Wei finish the sentence. Zhao Ge immediately waved up and understood, remember the duty to ask the sword. Ton Li Nan Wei to smile and replied. After that, she also turned to the group of Dong Li to say the death of the friends in the meeting with them, and they also took the hospitality. Zhao Ge clasped his hands behind his calm back to look at Li Nan Wei, who had left quickly and was far away in the deep blue sky. He secretly calculated this time his name would be transmitted to the ears of the sword Tan. Already, how much the value of fame will increase. A few days later, Zhao Ge no longer had the calmness of a few days ago instead of Anger. And Anger continuously pounding the hateful shouting table. The other woman has come back for a few days, and why her value of fame still shows no sign of increasing. So I find the opportunity I have to come to the sword's restaurant to bring all their legendary disciples to beat once. During the noisy bureaucracy, the system appeared to notice the completion of the copy. Zhao Ge raised his head to look at the notification line with a very happy mood. At Tan Chao Kiev Tong, at the same time, Lu Zhao Ge's carpet copy successfully copied the inner mind of Yu Yue. At that time, it was absolutely unable to calmly calm Yu Yue, who was sitting and thinking that the sister was retreating in the wooden room behind, and I was protecting the Dharma for that billion. According to the morality in the sword, Tong based on the fate of the sister, no one dared to provoke. But he remembers the words of Li Nanwei, our brother knows who the brother said. In the heart of Yu Yue there was no confusing this time. Li Nanwei's sister went down the mountain to see Zhao Ge brother. I really want to know what they did, whether Zhao Ge brothers mentioned, whether he did not have any realms. Now he had a headache and thought that Yu Yue shouted and shouted for a sense of trouble, so it was so sad to be pure. At this time, Yu Yue, as if he realized something, he was surprised to look up to the sky, looking at the sky. He was falling down on white spots. But Yu Yue muttered in surprise. At this time, the door of the room gradually opened. Yu Yue immediately realized the mind of the sword of Li Nanwei, the sister. Li Nanwei was finished cultivating. She walked out to take a long breath. Yu Yue happily called Li Nanwei sister. He knelt down to congratulate Li Nanwei the sister. Li Nanwei smiled and answered that Yu Yue opened the hole, finally filled, and the satisfied smile of a girl with a strand. Ji appealed to the man. Yu Yue is no exception. He was so surprised at Li Nan's smile. Yu Yue quickly calmed down. I did not have to quickly ask Zhao Ge brother. Li Nanwei took out a piece of manga and told you this brother. Holding a piece of manga in his hand, he muttered. Li Nanwei enthusiastically explained that this is the monk who, taken in the pile of Tyne Day's relics, also has no great effect. Yu Yue heard the eyes and shook the most naturally, the most happy to say more and more correctly. I see this string a few days ago. I was broken once, but we were forced to be caused by Zhao Ge brother, but I remember forever. Yu Yue repeated the words of Li Nanwei. This is because Zhao Ge brother's broken. He quickly asked Li Nanwei about the information of Lu Zhao Ge the sister with the brother who had compared to Zhao Ge's monk. Now what level of his brother is now and how much he is to find it, and the mind will be stronger at all. Li Nanwei was overwhelmed, so I had to raise my hand to stop for me to stop asking each one or something. Knowing that I was too excited, Yu Yue apologized right away. Li Nanwei looked forward and told Yu Yue to go there. I will slowly give it. Li Nanwei looked forward and told Yu Yue to go there. I will slowly give it. Then she looked at Yu Yue, who was still standing in front of her. Li Nanwei smiled and told him to sit down. 2 billion sisters sitting next to each other talked about to forget the sky and earth. Li Nanwei said the truth to say so much that time passed quickly. Yu Yue wake up, a voice he wholeheartedly admired. Lu Zhao Wo to do what others could not be ashamed to be, Zhao Ge brother. He tried to think more than that time that broke through the scene. Less than 4 months now can break through the scene. Suddenly you remembered something that loudly shouted right. He turned to Li Nanwei seriously, asking the sister after coming back to meet the sword of the great master. At that time did the sister mention Zhao Ge brother? Li Nanwei gently responded. Yu Ge doubted why. Li Nanwei smiled and answered because I felt that he would give my father a big surprise. She mischievously told Yu Yue that it would not be more interesting than many stars and new stars in the sword world. Yu Ge worriedly thought it would be surprised. The night gradually falling down. Now Lu Zhao Ge is studying the wooden card that he has just restored. He uses his hand to knock the cup on the wooden card and then commented that this seems to be nothing special. Lu Zhao Ge smiled and affirmed but did not matter anyway. Just need this thing, we will become the 5th king of the 4 heavenly king. Then use the consciousness to explore the grave of the card flashed in the hands of Lu Zhao Ge. He narrowed his eyes carefully to observe it. The results were so surprised that Lu Zhao Ge had to say that inside this, it turned out to be so wide. Lu Zhao Ge's consciousness is now just like a pearl in the middle of the large sea floor. He looks at the white spoiled space in front of him, but this is the inside of the wooden plate that is not going in, but there's nothing good. The excitement of Lu Zhao Ge increases quickly. He is highly inspired to decide, open out after regaining the consciousness anyway, or try it again. See a light flashing according to the voice of Lu Zhao Ge. We will come in again, he muttered alone. Me out again. Just like that. Lu Zhao Ge tried again and again. I went in, and then his interest faded out. After coming in, and then again Lu Zhao Ge felt a bit boring that he took the mukbai in his hand and turned around and turned at Lu Zhao Ge, bored with the school, muttering, this one was not interesting anymore and how to play this more fun than me. Li Nanwei said this could help calm the mind, but what effect did the mind have? Suddenly he came up with an inference waiting for the white space, including the consciousness of all the main characters in the world, could go in. Lu Zhao Ge strongly judged, if everyone's consciousness is here, it will not have to create a very divine interference. How excitedly he holds the wooden platform in his hand. This white space is actually Tyne Hu Yen. The world is also a place to talk online for 4 main characters of the 4 worlds. His mouth curved up into a clever smile. Mr. Kuai Tri is not very interesting. So it is very interesting that Yu Yue also has a wooden card like this. Not by trying a little, why it is said to make Lu Zhao Ge start to penetrate the decision to decide. So his god inside the wooden card. Outside, Lu Zhao Ge also used his hand to draw circles on his emok biplate. Currently in the sword of Li Trans there is a shadow of a retreat. It is Yu Yue's eyes that are closing to focus on the work. Suddenly he noticed that the wooden card he wore the abnormal glow. Yu Yue muttered in astonishment that Li Nanwei's sister gave me a strange star. Yu Yue held it in her hand and then asserted that the spirit of consciousness came to see why the wooden card was similar to when Lu Zhao Ge discovered its operation. The consciousness of Yu Yue after going into the vast emok bai. He looked at him around to wonder what this one was. This is where this is. Yu Yue saw the words in front of him as follows under the sky. The power of a person towards him was surprised to realize that this was talking about the emperor, Yu Yue shocked. What, this is the property of the emperor? Than Day, which cannot be the property of Than Day. Why is it encapsulated in this carpentry? He reflected to that person who was the proud child in the world, that was the strongest person who existed in the heavenly world. Even his 5 disciples were also fake powers to the Cuu, cannot daring to dream. Yue then shook my head and calmly calmed myself. How could I be so lucky to receive their inheritance? Yue, you quickly wake up. Yue then shook my head and calmly calmed myself. How could I be so lucky to receive their inheritance? Yue, you quickly wake up. His consciousness has a word not on the head of Lu Zhaoge, who lamented the handsome man as he wrote, and then no one responded. So it was so uncomfortable with this nickname of no mine, a little bizarre not knowing what it meant anymore. Thinking to do Lu Zhaoge right, I will continue to write more sentences. I don't believe that your house doesn't really see. Lu Zhaoge's name is not written by Lu Zhaoge again, as expected. Yue read him right away. He looked at the east-west and told himself that he knew we existed. Everyone else here there is someone else who can choose to come in here. At this time, the consciousness named Hoing wrote an additional word. Yue he widened his eyes and commented that there were other people. Lu Zhaoge saw that. So he criticized Hoing Shi. How could someone be so special that he wanted to be different from someone, or what was funny? The consciousness of the other name continued the question. Lu Zhaoge muttered to read, I just need to write on the amok by. The other side can see and can read the next things. Lu Zhaoge enjoyed the name of this little son who thought that he was talking to me alone. The consciousness of Lu Zhaoge's noble name announced that there were 3 gates who were disappearing. We would pull their heads to each. The consciousness of other people, everyone talked about 4 people who initially had 4 stars. That this mysterious name knew how many of these mysterious names know how many of him have pulled them in with his powerful power. This is ultimately what kind of power? Do not continue to ask the 3 people, and some people have gone up yet. In turn, the 3 names of heaven and earth all responded to one. Lu Zhaoge smirked and commented that these people only met again. He liked to comment that it turned out that the original nickname was Heavenly Hu Yan Hoing, and I still thought that the people who made the color for new batches. Hoing politely asked how he should call him. Lu Zhaoge smirked and answered that I haven't asked you, so you still ask me first. He rubbed his chin implicitly to himself, but now a perfect plan appears in his mind. Take writing on MOC by and attempts to plan the people to expand a little knowledge. My name is Cao Cao. The consciousness does not show the answer according to the will of Lu Zhaoge. You can call me. The other 4 were amazed to see the answer. The 3 words of the Lothan, led by Zhaoge Tamko. All 4 Heavenly Hu Yen Hoing people were surprised and looked at each other. Yeah, wonderfully, I muttered, to lead the LED person for him to end up how strong he was. I am also a person in Kiev Tong Ly in the eyes of Kiev Ton. But I also cannot keep an eye on. The more you think, Yue felt deadlocked. He was confusing to judge the person on the other side when he was even stronger than the sword Tun, but such a noble man. Why did he choose me? But if he chose the person, should be chosen to be. Zhaoge, brother. He was hesitant, but this was also related to the most powerful sect. We could not miss this opportunity, not to miss the opportunity. So Yue insisted on thinking to the sword of the Lord. We should still hide him, before the appropriate time will tell the sword of the great Lord. He remembered the words of Lu Zhaoge when he was young, and taught himself. But the more consistent with the mind could not have an indispensable room for the mind. That's right. Zhaoge brother taught us from a small parcel that I could not believe in others completely. Now I could not completely believe in the name that led this person. He looked at the 3 words that led Lothan in front of him. But if Zhaoge brother met this case, what would he do? People in the 22nd century of all classes of class are more developed, so surfing the network more than Lu Zhaoge is no exception. That is also the one who has the experience of slashing the wind and slashing the storm full of Lu Zhaoge chin and laughing. We have just written these words, but it is considered as the breeze in his ears, firmly speculating that now, just the most arrogant and exclusive person to ask himself, just finished saying that the name of Thayin made a question of Lu Zhaoge immediately. Leading the people of the lower gate say that we chose to come here so he knows what to know about us and how to trust him. Lu Zhaoge smirked to make it difficult to draw others into these 2 words a bit bad. His fingers rushed to write on the wooden card. Lu Zhaoge excitedly whispered, unfortunately for you to ask. I want you to ask the 4 of you who memorize like the 7 memorable equations. The consciousness did not represent Lu Zhaoge and then briefly showed 4 words of swords, spears seeing off. Heaven and earth. Each person symbolizes an extremely shocked weapon. He knew that he was really clear that we were really the one who was chosen. Lu Zhaoge silently deduced this name very recklessly, not Yue. But what is the nickname of the name, Yue? What is the urgent, heavenly border to lead the people to be rude? And Lu Zhaoge smirks and replies. He again took the name that did not definitely respond to the next time my mission was completed, and then you can talk to each other. If anything is important, you can write my name out. I will receive feedback today. Actually, Lu Zhaoge silently attempted to observe them carefully before, so he did the other man who had dive, and the other 4 seemed to be saying anything after just thinking a little bit. The identity of the people will stick out immediately. He looked at the wooden platform, wondered. But Yue, in the end, what is the nickname? It is not that Hu Yan Hoing, who will be the name. Yue here. Anyone who doubted Lu Zhaoge's reasoning was completely serious on this side. Yue is holding the Emok Bai in hand, happily commented that this nickname is really not bad at the moonlight hanging on the sky. Just like that, Heavenly Hu Yan Hoing talked to each other in the MOC Bai. But Lu Zhaoge still could not distinguish who was Yu Yue, because he had immediately removed the probability that Yu Yue from the beginning. So now, there is only a way to sit and watch. After a while, he gave up and cursed at Dong Han. There was no one like Yu Yue, both seemed to be sitting online with a different personality, right? The quiet night here, with the moonlight shining down the majestic mountainous area, is the clouds that are adventurous scenery. The time to chat with each other in the carpentry card as fast as a dog running in the field. It is time for Lu Zhaoge to give his blood sperm, and Lu Zhaoge is standing in front of a tombstone buried at the top of the mountain above with a small soul with purple aura. He said in a discouraged tone, "Not so happy that you smoke my blood, I did not have any benefits." His face showed a very uncomfortable attitude, and then quickly lifted his hand and continued to wait for you to give it to you right here. Do not want to wait long for the soul to get close to it. Suck on Lu Zhaoge's hand. He showed his unexpected face at that action. He was like dead. Shortly thereafter, Lu Zhaoge returned to him. He screamed and cried and swung his hand up and down. After it was drained to the blood of Lu Zhaoge, the soul suddenly became bigger than at the beginning, that he licked his mouth as if he had eaten a very full meal, but he was like a dry corpse no less. And no less, sitting on the tombstone from his mouth, a small soul like Y casting with Lu Zhaoge's face right now. The soul gradually flew towards him now on the face of Lu Zhaoge, still white. He tried to say this now. I am in the second realm and followed as the covenant. You should give me the third book of moisture. It gently responded to the words of the soul taken from the nothingness out of a book, with a vibrant purple color intertwined with the extremely beautiful clouds. The practice of the law appears on a mysterious magic circle, which is the third moisture atmosphere. He gently reached out for it to be surrounded by a source of energy that he could not hide his shock on his thoughtful face that he was able to reach the upper. Martyr was still too greedy. And then after all, the upper-level Dharma is the greatest peak. Lu Zhaoge stared at the book of the French, to the soulless face gradually becoming stupid soul, approaching him, asking questions. He was startled, awakening his soul, raising his 4 fingers up to Lu Zhaoge to understand its actions. Holding the exercises in the hand raised in front of him, he is in a curious tone of what you mean. You're talking about the 4th volume. He replies him with constant nods to Lu Zhaoge, with an excited expression that he leaned towards the sole of his hand, pointing to the book on his hand, or gently asking your thought that the 4th volume can improve this star. This time it nodded even stronger. When he finished listening, he was surprised at his hands clenched in his eyes and his mouth saying loudly with the admiration of the soul, he did not understand, confirming the joy of being on duty. Lu Zhaoge with his hand to cover his mouth and giggling. His mouth, he said that the 4th is the law, from the upper quality of your dignity, is my treasure. That is older. Then it means that 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 it means. So that means that way. So that, suddenly in his mind he thought of the lovely appearance of Aunt King, and the small soul continued to laugh. With the fraudulent face he continued, if we now have 2 women above, not that they will live in harmony with 2 beautiful wives, still unable to compress the excitement of Lu Zhaoge, with one hand covering his fraudulent face and one hand towards his soul, saying that the old man is the old man, who does not know that he has his stomo men to be in the sack of his affection, so that he will be in his sincere, so that he will be in his affection. The soul still did not understand the implication in his sentence. It tilted his head full of confusion. Lu Zhaoge just scratched lightly on his face and smiled wryly. I forgot you, I was a little stupid. I could not understand anything. It immediately was furious to use the energy to hit the face of Lu Zhaoge. He was dreadfully raised his hands to ask the goods to understand this sentence. Stop my hand, this thing is very good for you. Lu Zhaoge took out 2 square blocks with the moon imprint in the sides, giving the small soul, he laughed and said that you are not gathering this to you. It suddenly stops looking at his hand, as shocked when seeing those square blocks. Unable to wait for more small souls to rush to enjoy 2 blocks, it looks very delicious and excited in his mind. Now, very wonderfully. Do not understand what you collect these, for what else. After receiving a small gift from Lu Zhaoge, it was happy to be full of happiness on the face that was constantly dancing like a child, he thought to this kid, although he did not know how old, but not old was just an abandoned child. Suddenly appearing in front of his eyes a bright blue light, he was shocked in surprise. A magic circle that appears inside is a blue practice that appears algae for the lower sense of the lower level. The French book gradually flew towards Lu Zhaoge. His face could not hide his happiness to take his hands carefully to take care of him. He said that this is Lam sword French level. Before the excitement of Lu Zhaoge, the small soul nodded. He thought that in his mind it was true that the beloved female of his house, but definitely had to hide it carefully, to be slightly bowed his head down his face, showing a smirking time and thinking if he let the other sick people discovered that he could not say that he was like a dog, licking enough to scream a billion to find a pet at home. I promised to go anywhere but where to go, but where to go. After completing the original purpose, Lu Zhaoge turned away and walked down his mountain, then waved goodbye to the other small soul holding the book. Holding the right back of the body, he looked behind him. He laughed and thought in the next head when he returned the law to its owner already. The night falls in the Momen Dan Qingshan to rule the moonlight lighting on the whole sky of dim clouds. At the foot of the mountain, Lu Zhaoge put his hand to knock on the door of his room. He asked Dong Li's voice from the inside of the room behind the curtain of Li Nanwei, turning his head towards the door in a hurry, and waited for me. Standing in front of his room, he slowly pulled back his face, a little difficult to understand. He wandered in the room. The door of the room was gradually opened. She appeared with a messy outfit due to a hurry and grabbed her head to look at him inside the room of Lu Dongli. Even though it was the resting place of the elder who was not a bad sect, but it looked very simple. Lu Zhaoge sat down on the chair, gently pouring tea to raise for her singing. She asked him this late, "Why did you still come to me?" Lu Zhaoge gently waved his hand on the table and appeared two works with the light of the light that surrounded him here. Before the actions of Lu Zhaoge, she was surprised and widened, as if she saw the newspaper panicked. She asked this while he was still leisurely taking a sip of tea. Lu Dongli hurriedly took two valuable books with the strokes that glowed with an excited face. She continued this level and was not low. This is suitable to teach the disciples. Suddenly, ignoring the joy that she bowed and narrowed his eyes and turned to look at him with the doubt that she asked me where to get these things, where we did not have money. Now, don't have to spend the waste of being wasted to hear her say that he stopped. The two of them with a face full of jokes and foolishness. He put his cheeks with his voice, with a tone that he responded so, he always did not spend money to get these things. I also took a lot of effort. She pouted with her hand to rub her pitiful cheeks. After finishing the need for the right hand, Lu Zhaoge hurriedly stood up and left her to look at his long back. And back in the moonlight, she was surprised he waved to him and told me not to disappear and to teach it to the disciple. Lu Dongli moved towards the door, silently watching the back of the singer's shadow gradually hidden behind the quiet night. She puffed her face, now that looks like a small pufferfish in her hand, holding two books that she secretly firmly always in this world. I will not have a death. The night at the dragon fruit, piercing the red moonlight like the blood of the sky, in a murky to the creepy, under the ravines of a ravine of a red dragon crawling through the passing through. Where it goes to the ground, the place where the trees were burned on the road, were robbed of life. The beast of Jiaolong on his head has a long slash, showing a painful past, that his eyes shining brightly, looks very evil. Jiaolong headed towards the top of the surrounding mountain is covered by a crimson dense energy. Only after a moment he reached out to the top of the mountain, sticking his tongue to the owner of a man with a big hair like a lion's mane. The face of the man with the curled eyebrows looked very bad. He was sweaty. Suddenly he was angry with his red face, screaming violently in half a year to come to Tunguyen Hoi. 3 years took place once in the moon of the moon. If we could get the long wound, our wound could be thoroughly treated. Suddenly the pain pulled to him and frowned and suppressed it into that cutting arm while scolding and cursing those two damn gate for so many years. But the idea was still here, making us suffer every day. He hugged his face and trembled into the past like his hell. Momen waited until I completely recovered and killed all of you, to kill the whole family of you to see that. So I stopped by the old man. He saw it. He reached out to him and said that I could not give it to me. He opened his wide mouth to the pointed iron teeth to use him from above the tongue to appear a newborn who was crying loudly, like becoming another person with him, with a gentle expression from holding the child, gently to comfort. Haha, good. The wriggling eyebrow used his sharp claws to make a way on the small arm of the child. It cried more intense than a. He still tried to act as a good person who patted his face. His face was constantly smiling and did not cry. Finally, he was able to remove that fake mask, and he smiled and showed his sharp teeth with a barbaric tooth and said that I would now free you quickly. Finally, he was able to remove that fake mask, and he smiled and showed his sharp teeth with a sharp tooth with a tone of his denture saying that I would now free you quickly. After only a few seconds of the child completely disappeared from his world, with bloodstains still fluttering on the corner of his mouth, laughing loudly with a gloating tone. Only the girls are the best after 10 years of a G. The taste will chan. G will be very difficult to eat. Jiaolong suddenly shouted loudly, showing his sharp teeth like his knives. His eyebrows wriggled. His purple face. He gripped his hand angrily and said, if we remembered correctly, the couple of the other Mo men. Mo men seemed to have a boy and girl, so they were more than 10 years old, and I would break the rules once. He stood up. The sound of the cave door behind him was a mountain of the human skulls he ate for so long. He continued, after all, the daughter of the enemy taste would be very delicious. The old eyebrow wriggled his face and looked up at the moonlight through the open door of the Mo Men Me couple, who had risked his death and rushed to fight, making us completely lost his glory in the organization. He reached out to the sky, as if to grab an angry face, suddenly screaming inherently, all resources must belong to me again. By others who lost my harm, I fell to the third scene of my hand gripping the trembling moonlight. He said loudly, Mo Men, waiting for the gathering of Tunguyen. 3 years to end, I will tell you what is the hell. Outside, the Dragon Queen. Bach hung, a woman who fell down under the lava, was still burning smoke around her, rising and rising. She cried and cried without stopping forward. She seemed to be crumbled to let go of soft hands, hit the ground from behind the footsteps of a teenager, gradually approaching. Nobody else is one of the disciples of Mo Men Mo Dongfang, with a wooden sword on his side. He reached out to her, whispering that she was crazy. Mo Dongfang pointed to her forehead to do a power of green energy that appeared. Here is the bar of her uncle, immediately calmed down. He carried her in the bright moonlight. He asked her if the people recently, I would take her back. Mo Dongfang carried on her back, muttering to him. There was a big snake forcing my child to go to her face, very pitifully. Her eyes dilated to dark circles and full of blood and tears rolling down her thin cheeks. The corner of her mouth was still a little blood, She said that my only child had only one girl. The son was dazed. He carried her with a tired appearance that was walking in the vast forest. She was constantly dancing and dancing, saying that I could not lose the girl. I did not want to become a poisonous tree without a poisonous girl. She gradually saw the illusion of thousands of red eyes appearing in her life, with mocking voices that resounded for many years like that. But now she cannot give birth to a big butt so much that I think that I can give birth to a child, but that those things are related to the birth. It is for the bad husband's name. Your husband and your eyes are not so much. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Those invisible voices we did not want to be in front of her control. His face darkened down and slightly down the Fang Mo, pointing softly. Before the sentence of Mo Dongfang, she gradually regained her calm and unexpected, her eyes looking down at the boy who was taking her home, to think that in her heart, she was too excited. Having arrived in the village where she lived, he stopped. Mot nangoy dano jai kat giong hoi la tuhan gia Mo Dongfang kuin he jiao lang lang buok bao lang. Fia sao mot nangoy jan ong kwa lang jan kam vuki san sang tan kong Mo Dongfang hung ja. Bimot ba lao chan lai ngoy dan sung kwan kong nangong bantan ngoy hanjang kong phai la ngoy kwa lang chungta. Sao lam gi komot tuhan gia nao lai wabin thuong lai tha ben hu hanchu, kong gyong voin hung gita. Hearing being despised because of his small face, with a sad face calling them, they thought in the beginning of the practitioner there were many types. Mo Dongfang thinks of his attorney general with a tall appearance, with the spirit of Lu Zhaogei, saying that the marshal of the marshal is a stone duty to monopolize 12 stone barrels of people in the world, owed the 10 barrels of Mo Dongfang stone, thinking that the practitioners will really have people who emit their marshal like their masters like that. But there are also great brothers who have no reputation at all. The image of a simple practitioner like ordinary people appear. Is hating, he thinks, me and his brother is the same way. Returning to the reality, he looked back to the back of his face, was more fresh than he told himself in his heart. But I also wanted to become so martial. Suddenly a man jostled from behind the noisy crowd. Was my princess. But the way it was my princess. Having met her family member, Mo Dongfang gently helped her to sit on the ground. He smiled and explained to me on the road that seemed to be attacked by a beast. He quickly rushed to his princess. It's lost as if there was a lightning light down, where the intense sun was creeping at him as if he did not believe his ears shocked to widen his eyes wide. He not only does not care or worried about his wife. On the contrary, his face is full of discomfort and anger, not only a woman. Why not give birth to a child? What is the soul of her face? Now, her face is lifeless. Mo Dongfang standing behind his face to suppress indignation, but the sharpness also showed a bit unsightly. He frowned, and his face was tough, and watching the old couple in his head like that. Attorney General Ba will never be a smoke fluttering over. He remembered the memories of chatting with the Grand Master, and Master sitting on a long table containing what was delicious and hot tea was still suspicious. Hearing her singing the intention of greedy frowning, she frowned extremely uncomfortable, and responded to a cup of tea in her hand. Just finished Lu Dongli, holding a long than, true chasing love, with her sin Jer Lu. Zhaoge was afraid of tears, and tears just showing and cursing at once still not enough, still burning the will to set up a steam, but could live until now. But Mo Dongfang in the middle of the life of life, he slowly enjoyed the sip of tea. He would have a small master. Returning to reality from the small village of Mo Dongfang, Dugong's eyes looking far away to the forest in front of her heart, the big snake carrying the girl is still hiding in the valley, if not eradicated sooner or later threatening the village. Mo Dongfang tightly grabbed the sword, he wondered how he went to see it. Cutting across his chaotic mood for a big explosion that shocked the people in the village of Mo Dongfang, slowly observing him using one hand to cover his face, to avoid being affected by the poisonous gas, he was shocked to turn his back to ask what was going on. The ground was moving. Sao. 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 Behind the white smoke, gradually appeared, it kept the big tongue from the village of the people in the village, and they shouted and shouted at the village. The monster was not allowed to enter the village, and ran quickly to run quickly. On this side, Mo Dongfang is looking at the monster. Mo Dongfang's face becomes rigid. He is being obscured by this huge monster from the deep sun in the mind of the feeling of oppressive, but we have not yet broke down the first realm we can defeat it how. Suddenly behind him, he had a big screaming. He quickly turned his head to look in front of him, the old mother who was in pain when she saw the person who robbed her son. She stuttered and said that my son was being taken away by his husband, hurriedly clinging to her quickly and fleeing him, and he said what she did, but everything ran away quickly. The mother's face became more and more bitter than the pale face, and tears greeted her to scream towards the monster, before my eyes did not go to, I want my child. He hurriedly hugged his wife's weak body, biting his resentment in his heart, to comfort this stupid lady. She did not have to hit her own head to die, and she wanted to die, and she witnessed this painful moment. On the face of the Fang, the back of the sword was also withdrawn from the shell of the Fang Mo, looking at the Barbara, full beast. He thought that the master I apologized to, I did not learn the carefulness of the masters. If you did this big thing on other sects, whether to look or not bow down, he closed his eyes and remembered the solid back of the Grand Master, recalling the instructions of the superior Hassan into the Wanderer. As if getting more courageously, I opened my eyes to my eyes, now a bit more powerful and brave than he thought in his mind. Just need to drag other sects to this monster will be done. Do not let him wait for a long time to rush to the fang as if he was hunting and sitting on his mouth wide open to reveal the sharp iron teeth drooling into the teeth like spider silk threads. Mo Dongfang shouted loudly. He stabbed the sword towards this great monster. His face did not chan. He also ignored the fear of being on the opposite of him. I secretly thought that I was somewhat lovely. This place is covered with lots of high bamboo in the middle of the forest that is very luxurious, but also mixed with ancient. There is light emanating from the inside of the great representative Lu Zhaoge. He is practicing the Dharma in front of the word that is hovering in the middle of the space below the floor. There is a glowing 8-strand circle placed between high-level pillars created by Lu Zhaoge in this book, saying that it is only necessary to be transmitted in this way of success of 98% Ag. Suddenly there was an explosion that had a smoke that spread to the outside. Lu Zhaoge was like dead in place. His hair was confused like a mobile bird's nest, his face flushed like a ripe tomato. He exhaled a light smoke. From the explosion of the rock scattered throughout the smoke floor, he still had not melted all his hand, and hugged his face and collapsed in his head. Now as if he was confused, he said, "The opportunity of 3-1-1-5-9-2-6 was fake, right? Why did you try it many times but still failed? Or the difficulty of this gas training tool is too high?" Suddenly, there was a red notice that appeared before Lu Zhaoge inside the notification board containing a darling mark. He was startled. On the system board shows the words Mo Dongfang, 3 disciple, Mo Men, Dan Jirus. Read the lines of Lu Zhaoge messages suddenly changed. He's hurriedly riding a carpet in the shape of his leaf fan, rushing to the 3 disciples, so fast as if the wind tore all of those light clouds floating. His face showed the extreme anxiety that he used his hand to control the carpet faster. In the beginning, there were tens of thousands of uneasy things. Even though Khan had a lot of effort, it would take several hours to arrive at the time for ordinary people to die cold. And then Lu Zhaoge remembered the silhouette of a silly but very sincere face full of tension. He wished Mo Dongfang, "I am a grave. I don't know if you are lucky or unlucky." The past suddenly rushed back to the image of a very mischievous when the child was waving with Lu Zhao. The core index and the index of his swordplay, he was only the 3 of him saying that this little girl was very unusually abnormal. But he continued that the charm of that kid was just a question mark of his slightly stupid smiling face that made others super favorable. He immediately thought the past images in the past Mo Dongfang were drawing to win clay trees with different shapes, in a very lovely shape in a roadside stall, with the innocent said that the owner of the shop owner hit again, and he was so lucky that the owner. But sometimes it is completely different from the image of the big brother holding Mo Dongfang completely unconscious on his head, a big durian with a big brother with his dedicated face today. When he went out, he did not understand why the durian from the sky fell, hit his head, and headed his head. Returning to the reality, Lu Zhaoge was less worried than partly the face was more steadfast than he thought about him. Hope you must be lucky now. In the middle of the vast space above is the blue sky, below is the forest with the majestic mountains. He rides on the carpet, soaring a shadow behind the white clouds. The place where Bak Hung Kyosi is now, the sunset. The sunset is falling here. The battle between Mo Dongfang and the monster Jiao Long has not yet come to the end of him, and it rushes into each other to fight fiercely. Each of the sounds of the battle rang out of the sword in his hand, surrounded by yellow energy that looks very strong. Jiao Long Lung, his head as hard as his stone in the lucky fang he had helped, but still not. Over there he used the force to push him backwards before this extreme oppression. Mo Dongfang had to shed his blood. Jiao Long raised his head with 4 eyes, flashing. It shouted loudly, so loudly that the jarring of Jiao Long lifted his tail up to the people running below it. The monster waving the tail towards the old couple. Its tail is so huge that they are several times higher than them. It smashed its tail into the arid ground and it screamed again, and the iron teeth were spaced in the corner of the mouth as if it has gradually torn out and looked so scary. Mo Dongfang rushed towards him and his wife. He built a strong wall with a magic of protecting ordinary people with the power that was too big. It could only help a blow and then vanish in nothingness. He was under great pressure at that blow. His body was gradually trembling and constantly. His face was stuttered and stuttered. Before the exhausted strength of Mo Dongfang, Jiao Long quickly rushed towards him. He opened his mouth wide and tried to swallow him to choose the scene in front of him, so terrified. He looked up at him on his face as if he showed his bloody impotence on the corner of his mouth and still poured out to think that I was really. From the sky, a spiritual energy mixed between the red and black oppressed to the people rushed towards Jiao Long as the rocket created a big explosion due to the horrible collision. His face became unexpectedly mixed with a little fear. Lightning line is still lingering here, leaving the eyes to look at the ground. A sharp iron tree plugging deep into the abundant spiritual energy still surrounding the trees more than it is increasingly emitting stronger energy than before. The source of overwhelming power of the fang shields the dust in front of his eyes and shocked his eyes. The first time he saw that Jiao Long was so scared, he wounded his eyes like a big worm quickly ran away. Standing in front of the ground, crumbling due to the power of Than Thong, he realized that there was a big thing that was flying above him. Gradually looking up at that vast sky in the sky, where Bak Hung Kosi, a giant bird, was covering the red sun, the majestic scene was so great. Suddenly there was a female voice rang out from the back of the giant bird. This child, despite having just experienced a fierce battle, Mo Dongfang still stood upright and clearly answered Mo Men. Mo Dongfang has just introduced the sect of him, now trembling his eyes that is about to be no longer able to resist the fang who falls into the ground. He lay down on the cold land of the woman, gently landed and moved towards him, the dim eyes trying to look in front of her eyes as a woman with a very majestic martial arts. The beauty of the beauty was covered by the light from the sun. She had never heard of this name, but you were not bad at this name, but you were not bad. Mo Dongfang tried to respond in his voice full of fatigue that was naturally the Grand Master, but said that I was the Great Holy, that the beauty was difficult to understand. She asked many times the Great Holy, but Mo Dongfang could no longer continue to resist. He gradually closed his eyes. That year at the apple of the sky today is very beautiful. Below is a small family that looks quite poor. A bunch of children with a martial arts sitting around Lu Zhaogei. He said this time, I will tell the journey to the west, outside the door. There is a kid who is stealthily eavesdropping. The children who heard the story of the story immediately hid his hands in his hand, raising his fingers to the sky. He started the story that a swordsman used a long sword called a cane, like that of going to the sky to the ground. Nothing could not make everyone call him the young man who admired the young man. He fluttered behind the door. Nobody else Mo Dongfang when his eyes were bright. He was very excited. He thought about the sky and did nothing to use a long sword, called like that of Tatine Dithan. Inside the family they are playing with each other. Everyone is holding a small wooden tree of the big larger we are, Chitine, Diathan. We are also the holy, holy, holy. We are also the same as the great heavenly holy, Lu Zhaogei stand nearby. Suddenly a small hand placed on the old door of the wings that was gradually opened. He said that I was behind the door of Mo Dongfang. Suddenly appeared the children who were surprised at the presence of him. An ugly child there approached his face and said that you were ugly, like you just deserved to be a monster. Mo Dongfang was very shocked to hear those vulgar words. Another boy with the cruel spots on his face and dirty sticks to say loudly, so that the other children also followed the ugly goblin to beat him quickly and hit the ugly monster to beat away. As soon as they finished, they rushed to beat the rigid wooden sticks continuously on the head of the Fang Mo with children, then used their feet to kick hard on his back. Mo Dongfang could only sit down on the floor and hugged his head very pitifully. He tried to refuse him not to be painful because he was brutally beaten. He shouted and shouted at me, I did not play with you anymore. I did not play anymore. The kids have achieved the intention of a child to throw the stick in his hand and then say loudly, if he does not play a strange toy. Another child pulls his hand under his eyes to poke his hometown. The kids passed by the Mo Dongfang. A voice offered to go out there, despite the violence, but still could not calm down. He sat down on the cold ground and still hugged his head tightly. Mo Dongfang gradually put his hand out of his eyes to look at the kids after they left. He gently picked up the log on the ground. On the ground he also wanted to become a great holy Mo Dongfang, to pick up the branches in front of him. Place the stick on the ground. He waved the stick back and forth on the floor to create small collisions that have just read the territory quickly here. Suddenly, from behind Mo Dongfang there was a voice that coughed up and coughed who called this old man, so he heard that he was very excited to answer as an earthquake. Lu Zhaogei gently clapped his hands and bowed his head to greet him, the god of the great god. He suddenly turned his head to look at him. Mo Dongfang was shy but also very complacent. He scratched his head in a hurry to respond to the great holy, why are we not the holy? They say that we are an ugly guy who is a monster. He looked at him and said nothing more. He just smiled gently. Seeing that he was fresher than Lu Zhaogei, put his hand on his head, gently rubbing him. Asking this child, I asked who you were. Who told him this? He was confusing. Before his brother's question was stammering. Hearing that Mo Zhaogei with a smile on his lips continued to say that if I said you were more like a holy than them. Mo Dongfang's eyes sparkled before he said he still did not stop being shocked. Mo Zhaogei reached out and put on his back, making him startled him to continue. Tatine, Dithan will never bow. His head will always be self-deprecating about himself, as if you stand upright. He pushed his back so that he could be more straight than me to say that he understood that he did not look at his smiling face in a soft voice and responded to his obedient voice obediently. Obediently, 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 obedient. Suddenly Lu Zhaogei bowed and stopped in his ear with a cunning face. He said that I also had a secret to tell you that he suddenly looked at him. He said that I was a practitioner who just finished his words and he made his own stick in his hand and flew up and turned into a wooden sword. Swordwood gradually falling into his hands. Mo Dongfang, with a face full of happiness to accept it, he said loudly, as a cane. After giving him the wooden sword Lu Zhaogei, he turned to say goodbye to you to keep that secret. He held a small sword in his hand and ran around the street when he said that I was also a great holy. Suddenly Mo Dongfang slowly stopped, standing in front of the sunlight of the sun, his determination and heroic appearance loudly. At the bottom of his feet is the shadow with the appearance of the true holy. In the representative of the Momen Lu Dongli, she was holding a hot cup of tea, still suspiciously. She asked him to ask him that he really thought that the kid was like Chitine Dithan. Lu Zhaogei gently poured tea. He just told him that a little bit. She was angry to the face of the excessive jokes of her brother swinging her fist. How could he be so obnoxious? But he dodged a punch to tear the wind. Lu Zhaogei looked far away towards the sky. He responded in a low voice, even though he seemed not the same, but later he would be the same. The image of Mo Dongfang raised his head and puffed out his chest, walking around the village with a wooden sword in his hand. His hand and Soot together to enjoy the tea and chatting with each other, a little pleasant face to accept this kid as the third monk's sister. She is so cautious, but that the young man seems very poor. Lu Dongli was a bit surprised in front of the monstrous singer who was a faint smile that looked very reliable. She did not wonder anymore, on her lips gradually blushing with a pink smile. The fresh face of the young woman agreed with the decision of Lu Zhaoge. She responded softly. Returning to reality in the blue sky, there is a giant bird flying below, is the vague hills and hills. After the floating clouds, after a long time of fainting, he gradually opened his eyes. Sitting on the back of the giant bird, he looked up around him asking this. On the face, the wounds were shocked to continue the black crows. From behind him, a female voice rang out. He was startled and turned around behind. The Canthan had just helped him to save him a life in front of him. He reverently joined hands with the superior of the seniors who had to save the life. Looking at his good hands in front of him, he realized that something else thought that the wounds on people were much better than that this was the taste of this taste. The beautiful woman is sitting on a wooden chair with meticulous pattern. She looks at the faraway sky, softly responds to the very shocking eyes. He stooped with his hands and politely asked, but she still did not know what the name of the senior was. The beauty of her eyes looked at him with crimson eyes as if attracting people to look at it. She answered Zhuan the Sun. She continued, Zhang asking. And before his eyes, now a beauty with a majestic armor. She holds a bottle of wine with a red rope wrapped around the body of the bottle, who is drinking hair fluttering in the wind like a heroic female general, but also very similar to a billionaire Mo Dongfang was surprised to know that his sect was like dying and stood at his mouth. Oh mouth A, he thought that he was so great as Xuan the Sun, that the Grand Master's Grand Master. No place here is the northernmost part of the sky. The sky is covered with a beautiful blue and blue scene ahead, as on the heavenly world above the waterfall, that is rushing like a little water, is the main electricity of the sect below the waterfall. There are many other great halls. The fantasy scene of the Fang, with the admiration for the Sun Yard to be one of the 4 great sects as famous as the sects of the sect. The image of the people is the image of the people. The image is gradually the image of the people. The people are gradually the image. The intelligence and intelligence, he continued. But the Grand Master Ba said, there were special dharmas in Xuan, the sun. It would push the desires of the practitioner down, but exaggerate one of them. Mo Dongfang silently remembered the Grand Master. Ba also specially said that most people in Xuan the sun face are always cold. But he looked up at Zhang, asking Anne, which was gently covering the bottle of her face. Her face did not change. He thought that this senior did not exception. Suddenly the delicious aroma of wine was spreading everywhere. He flew incense to the Mo Dongfang. He suddenly was shocked at its charm. He thought that this was so fragrant. This is a good wine. Maybe this senior has a soul to eat and drink. Zhang Xin Yan to fall to the chair. She brought the wine bottle up, slowly pouring down to enjoy the flavor of the Fang closed hands, and continued to talk about the Fang will never forget the grace of the senior's life. If there will be a chance in the future, will be grateful to the senior. Suddenly he faltered, just by Mo Dongfang, suddenly his face down, and recalled the words of the Grand Master instructing him. If you encounter a monster who has to return to the newspaper right away, that the enemy does not wear heaven with Mo Men. The face full of steadfastness and determination, he clasped his hands to bring the ants to the great sun who can be related to our sect. Zhang Xinyanto reached his hand on his face coldly in response to his position, as if he was dumbfounded. He did not understand what she wanted to say. She closed her eyes slowly to drink a sip of wine. She continued to tell herself that you could walk back and forth without seeming that Mo Dongfang understood his good idea. He folded his hands frantically to respond to the senior. The majestic black crows hurriedly turned around towards the Mo Men sect of the sky. Now that is brilliant yellow mixed between the undulating white clouds. Mo Dongfang slowly observed Jiang Xin Yan ANH to think in the head of this Sunday, in addition to being so cold but really very good temperament. Her beautiful face was covering her alcohol being covered by the glare of the sun, but it still could not hide his beauty. Shang Xingyanto looked at him, who was sitting and closing his eyes and thinking very much. The curved lashes adorned more attractive red eyes. Like the fairy, she thought that I was just a little curious. The Mo Men something taught. What was like this form? Like this. In Mo Dongfang, who is dedicated to cultivating a shining aura that is covering him with Stran, realms like being removed. So I am about to break through the first realm. And now Lu Zhaoge is bewildered, he looks extremely stupid. The notice of this once appeared as a yellow notice of Mo Dongfang has escaped from Dan Gare. He immediately waved his hand to turn the carpet back to Mo Men. He told himself that it was useless to leave as long as the other kid was okay. Inside the Mo Men sect, Xiaokyo is practicing standing in hell, saying loudly a bit of a tough face of Xiaokyo. Suddenly from outside, Lu Zhaoge landed. They rushed to where he left the small Chu. Luobing and Lu Dongli with the joy of calling the Grand Master of the CA. Seeing Luobing call Lu Zhaoge close, she immediately angrily faces the tunnel, looking at her. She was smiling deep and thinking in her head, what was the heat I did not borrow? She immediately took the opportunity to approach him with a lovely face and a sweet tone that said, the master of the master. I poured the tea for him behind the dong of her face and scolded in her heart the dog dared to butter. Under the sub, Q trying to call Lu Zhaoge ignoring Luobing, he gently smashed his hand with a small disciple Chu with an excited face to say the master of the master. He answered Chu in the joyful atmosphere. Suddenly Lu Dongli discovered that something was approaching here. She looked towards the sky. Suddenly, Lu Dongli discovered that something was approaching here. She looked towards the sky. He puzzled his eyes and looked towards the far sky, but they also watched but did not realize that they were bewildered to ask where there were people. From the back of the bright sunlight, a giant bird is rushing towards them. This giant bird is so big that the sunshine is in the area they are standing in shock. Lu Dongli, with a look at her vigilance, she continued to say that we could not see through the other girl. Lu Zhaoge knows who this person is. His love face, smiling and looking at Zhang asking, and he thought she was thinking about her. Lu Zhaoge looked up at the large eagle bird wingspan covering the sun to tell the master for a long time. Lu Zhaoge looked up at the large eagle bird who was hiding the wings to cover the sun, who had not seen the master for a long time. He continues to remember us with an elite skill, plus financially, not the form of these wild monsters is not enough, compared to us, and we are not completely considered the Huyan world as a real world. In the retreat line, Lu Zhaoge at that time was standing in front of a hunting dog monster 10. His whole body trembled and feared, and thought that this monster was not right at all. When he remembered the time when the monster rushed to bite into his hand, he thought but the true feeling of Hainhu Yen Jiji soon told us that this world was not so simple. Lu Zhaoge panicked his mother. This pain is too true. We will awful the system. We want to get out of here. The system's voice resounded out to go out to die, and then again. After listening to the system, he was like seeing lightning in the sky, and the face was bewildered, and asked the system what was still installed like this. At this time, the hound monster jumped to Lu Zhaoge. It roared, making him afraid to drop his eyes out. Apart from him, he was tightened by the monster to the pale face, so it would not have to be real in this game. Before going to the cutting board to make food for the hound monster Lu Zhaoge swearing peanuts, and peanuts waiting for you to go out. But suddenly, there was a blade across the neck of the fierce monster that made its blood splash. Lu Zhaoge rolled his eyes to look at the person in front of his eyes with bloody swords. In the hands of Jiang Xinyan, to be shined by the sun on her body, as if glowing her coldly glowing. He looked at the girl in front of his eyes and bewildered for a long time. At that time, we found his true strength to play this game. The system appears and sets a new task. Whether the monk wants to worship not below is the answer or not. Lu Zhaoge quickly clicked on the button that he bite his teeth. Of course. The player's blood reminder system is being restored later on the screen that appears to be too good. He is too low. He is angry at the super question results in front of the stupid system. You play me. Seeing Jiang Xinyan to turn away, he hurriedly called for her, waiting for her not to turn around. What did she glance at him? He hesitated to ask if there is any way to increase your feelings quickly. Not about how much money is $50,000. Just finish Jiang's sword words, please. And fly straight to him. When the sword flew to Lu Zhaoge's neck, he stopped. He was scared to raise his hands to surrender. She coldly said the lake of the same language as this dog. On his forehead he was sweating, but in his heart was extremely excited and deliciously established by Hainhu Yen, the world, which is even better than those flashy games that do not consider money to be all interesting. Thinking? Then, Lu Zhaoge respectfully bowed his head to apologize. Just now that I am not right to what I mean, how to worship you as a monk. Jiang Xinyan to look at the son who was respectful in front of the teacher's voice, full of contempt. Nothing else. I don't accept a disciple like you. Lu Zhaoge silently doubted from the beginning. We had a very charming charm, regardless of everywhere happened this way. Escape from the memory of his memory. The gentle smile that the old girls had a good girl who was afraid of gates, and women inadvertently discovered her hobby was eating, so we learned some jobs from the chefs with high hand. Gradually, we accidentally became a top-notch chef, who also successfully became a disciple, and her only chef on his lips, still hanging that smile that became deep, even a few times. Even a little bit of disdain for the ancestor. Because to start this situation, Lu Zhaoge looked up in the sky, whispering in the heart. But what made us regret most was to see the fat bird roasting wings in the sky. He thought that he really wanted to make meat and eat the chaotic bird that looked so good, meat, and regret that there was no chance of the suffering bird is feeling bad. So his whole body trembled in panic, scared. The giant bird watched Lu Zhaoge and landed on the ground in his head full of bewilder. But Dongfang struggled towards the subject. He shouted at the Grand Master of the Master. His sister was happy to call Mo Mendi. Jiang's cold appearance asked Anlu to frown and said, Dongfang does not know where to know that the great practice of the Yun. Not only does it not see through her strength, but Dongfang's atmosphere was very weak before being injured. He asked her a question that was not related to me, just that it was not that the great practice of the younger who could see through the cold spine on the face of the sweat, like the rain, did not dare to answer her brother. While that shyness Lu dynasty turned to smile except for him. Lu Zhaoge looked at her with her eyes thinking that this girl's personality was all more hidden by the hidden method of hidden atmosphere taken from the hands of Ant King. Now I completely did not know the strength of her, and later I would definitely ask what she was now. In the end, how to see his look at his eyes, and fear that he wanted purple to face purple face, and want purple face to face his face, and purple face. Dongfang stepped down from the bird. He respectfully bowed his body for the Grandmaster's Grandmaster, who encountered the danger thanks to this senior. Looking up to look at Master Dongfang, I thought that now I should not say, the incident of the animal waiting for a little bit, will tell the Master and the Grandmaster. Lu Zhaoge walked to Jiang Tuan before everyone's astonishment. Behind him was the brilliant son. He introduced the Master of the Grandmaster Lu Zhaoge. This friendship does not know how to confess. She stroked the head of the bird to answer briefly. Xuan the son Jiang Xinyan. Her eyes widened and looked at the person in front of her eyes. He appeared with a handsome appearance. After a period of bewildered, she turned her head away. The three girls of the subject puzzled them. Shou Xingken to blush and glance at him. The elegant atmosphere is like a statue sculpted. She silently exclaimed, "This person is so beautiful." Lu Zhaoge was pleased to think that his abdominal energy was 10, not that fake. Lu Dongli looked at her attentively. In his heart he was angry with the woman. What was the face of the monkey, not thinking that he did not see? He asked Zhang to ask An into the friendly religion if she saved the disciple of the Momen, the fate of not being equal to here for a few days, for me to fulfill the owner. She did not reject his good answer. In her mind, she secretly assessed that such a small disciple had such a mettle and a young girl who was about to approach the great practice. There is also a person who recalled the picturesque face of Lu Zhaoge, so she blushed how a beautiful man. The corner of Zhang's mouth asked An to slightly lift at a small, interesting subject. The system of announcement of the fame of the person is increasing rapidly. Lu Zhaoge tilted her head slightly towards her and pondered as expected, even if he would look at the subject with a different eye without rushing on. I understood very well. Walking inside the subject is not too big, but just enough. The two of them sat at the table of a servant who came to pour tea into Jiang's glasses. Lu Zhaoge stops him from having friends who like to drink alcohol and don't like tea. Her whole body was blank. When she heard him say this, on the face was the fear of the teenage girl. She was embarrassed. He reached out to the natural religion that he could drink alcohol, but she was so surprised she did not know how to answer, then use his shy eyes to look at him. After saying that, she took out a bottle of wine containing the wine that opened the lid inside and flew a strange scent. That scent flew to him, the art performer Lu Zhaoge, officially on the floor. He closed his eyes and felt this smell of wine here. She was quietly looking at the bottle of wine right in her heart, thinking that this specific taste is very expensive, but many people understand and like that there are not many people in Zhuan, the sun, there are no wine friends like this type. Lu Zhaoge on his chin said, "If I remember correctly, this wine was soaked by 14 line. That which was distinguished, it was the Ginseng Dragon, Ginseng Pink, BLA, BLA, BLA. Those words again made Jiang asking Anne to widen her eyes in surprise. She wondered if this person did not expect to know this wine. Dongli saw that he talked about alcohol like reading the nine-tailed table of the nine. Tails whispered to wonder when he understood about alcohol, so his disciples also doubted or the Grand Master. Zhang Xingan to say unexpectedly to the Grand Master, who is also the same interest. She took out another bottle of holo to him, invited Lu Zhao to happily accept the world. All the people in the subjects widened their eyes and looked at him with a shocking shock for 2 cases. At this time, he just brought his eyes leisurely looking at them. Why did you look at the coordinates? Xiaoqiu, with 2 bright eyes like a fragrant saliva star, before the craving of Lu Zhaoge, quickly closed the bottle. He said, "You guys must not drink alcohol all back." The people, they turned away and walked away. Only the little girl Chu wanted to stay. She tried to pray and she only took a sip, but she was pulled away by the sister. Lu Zhaoge laughed softly. Looking at the pitcher in his hand, he remembered his previous life for this thing. Zhang Xingan to drink, while looking at him with the eyes of expectation. Lu Chaowao to bow his face to hide his fear. He secretly asked now if he said he didn't like her if she killed me. He quickly regained his mood to smile brightly and praised the delicious wine in his heart, to be determined to live and die once, and he had to drink once. And then he closed his eyes and poured the wine into the mouth of the wine to absorb the taste of his eyes, closed tightly. It was now opened his body as if he was struck by lightning and speechless. Lu Zhaoge recalled the image of Zhang Xinyan when she was drunk in her previous life. She said, "The monk is now a little bit cool." The aroma of the wine spreads gently. He thinks this wine is not difficult to accept, as in the opposite imagination, there are many flavors. He gently watched her sitting next to him to drink the mastery. The scene moved to the previous life of the people kneeling and bowing back to the people to practice the 2 people who thanked Xuan, the sun's dharma, so there was often sexual exaggerated people, so they often appear intense love, Leo. Zhaoge exclaimed that his master was so cool like Zhang Xinyan to be suppressed against it, so they could not explain what was love. She turned to ask him what was cool. Lu Zhaoge laughs coolly and speaking is very dangerous, very generous and brilliant in his heart. Zhang Xinyan deeply. But I had a sister who said that she liked it in her eyes, always glowing him hard to understand yes. After his whole body stiffened in his ears, the explosion was not but his master's beauty, would like a great old man. Lu Zhaoge angrily frowned and not forced to prevent this from happening. She didn't look at him, so she was like a cool person. He scratched this one to explain the situation that could not be called so cool and not cool. Xiao Xingan to continue asking, "What is the situation?" "Zaka, you know." He seemed to win the trick in his joy and wait for this statement. Under the sunset, he turned to sincerely saying that the disciple did not know what was the one who knew one person when he did not have the person he liked. She turned to look straight at him with an unbelievable face, so I asked, thinking that the plan to stop the love master was successful, but one evening in Xuan the Sun, Lu Zhaoge recalled that night the master said drunk to me, but her monk could not be drunk. Zhang Xingan to blush, because she was drunk against her chin, but Zhaoge V now was a little cool now. Returning to reality, he kept closing his eyes and no reaction, Zhang Xinyan. As expected, she did not like the taste of Xuan Mian. Why did she sadly look at the vase of the lake? Not many people like Xuan Mian's taste, is also bizarre. Lu Zhaoge answered that the inhuman, I really liked it even drinking a long-lasting taste. She saw that he looked a bit different, so he thought that his eyes looked at me. Why there was a feeling for a long time before seeing, this is the first time I see this person. Why did he look like that? He brought the wine bottle to the faithful. She still looked at him without saying that he saw his neck and poured alcohol into his mouth to remember this pearl of his lake and increasing the miraculous wine inside at least there were at least a few jars of wine, so he would be drunk. Lu Zhaoge drank alcohol and pondered her that time and told me. The image of her drunk in her previous life appeared with the saying, but Zhao V now a little bit cool now. I was then blushing and heard that he said he and she was a person of the two worlds anyway. Lutaga gets the game down. He thought about himself. Why did he have feelings for a fictional person? He went to the balcony to see the magnificent city in front of his eyes, in a messy mess. Why or the other world was too real and made himself unclear reality. Looking at the image of myself reflected in my mirror at that time, I still could not be aware of my feelings. Until one day in the game of fiery battle is taking place. Xiaoxing can to say these names from the beginning already designed. In front of her eyes was a giant dragon with a girl standing on her head. She said unexpectedly, "It was true that the destruction of this village, who was a two, was able to handle, but because of you. The other girl with a wicked face, with only one eye on the other, is a red flower," she said, "because to hunt, to kill the great priesthood of Zhuan, the sun. This time we invite 10 great love to practice." Zhang Xinyan on the corner of the lips that were still bloody, so at least the other villagers could escape. She raised her nose straight towards her with a sharp eyes. "Even though I died, you also have to drag some people to go with." The other girl was frantically angry to die and then even stiffened, all for us to catch alive. Oh, I showed a sinister face that licked this woman's fingers in the monk, who was famous for being a cold beauty. Just need to catch her. How you want to play her. That's how it is. Her subordinates laughed and shouted at their satirical satires in a row. Lutog in the real world is in a quiet drink. A beautiful, lovely sister who was massaging his feet. She was polite to ask my tycoon, how did he answer normally? Behind the sunglasses is the thought that he thought very strange. Looking at the hilly hills of the beautiful, lovely sister, he thought that before this seeing this beautiful body, I could not control it. Lujoga pursed his lips slightly, but did not know why today he felt chaotic. The phone suddenly appeared, a notice that made him pay attention. After picking up the phone, and finished reading that notice, his mood immediately changed the phone to notify the important news of the 10 love of the monk to attack Xuan, the sun. Great monks, the spirit of the spirit. He was worried that the master seemed to be in Xuan the sun. Lujoga clicked on that notice to open. The other sister looked at him, and then smirked in her head to calculate, a super rich son like this just need to sleep with him, wants a lot of money for the next life. She picked up the intention to sit on his feet in her heart and thought that until then, I need to take the initiative for a bit. Before she was sitting down, she was pushed straight away by him to go back today. After saying that, he quickly turned and walked away, leaving the other sister bewildered. Maybe his appeal was not clear enough. Every day on the street, the men wanted to eat themselves. Lu Chaoga thought of Zhang please, and who is alone with 10 great Tu, anger and angered beasts and beasts, greatly dared to touch the master of Lu Zhaoge. He returned home to turn on the phone, calling the system immediately. I remember something waiting. If I was like, that suddenly rushed in, only I could not win so much love like that. He smiled sinister, and his eyes were cold, and then just a little love. Right. Shou Xingento sigh, even though her mouth was bloody. The soldiers died like a fire, and rising to Jiang, who would be tired to sit by the stone. The echo from the head of a giant centipede body. The female monster voiced the real life of my 5 peers all died, but the woman deserved to die, like you were only seriously injured. On the face of the female monster, the red eyes filled with killing intent to look at the appearance of Jiang asked Yan to ridicule, but now you run in the sky of 2 monstrous gate. In the back began to have a sharp tooth of fangs. The remaining gate standing in line with each other just finished the sentence of 2 strangers, laughing and laughing quickly, and breaking the brakes to reveal the bare breasts of the 2 stranger bazaars, laughing loudly, the great practice of Zhuan. The sun, we first enjoyed this. Zhang Xinyan to close her eyes, and opened her eyes to look at them, with her face full of wounds. Zhang Xinyan that used to use the law to cut the meridians, we thought we would never use it in this life, but did not expect the day to come so early. Zhang Xinyan to face his face. Zhang Xinyan to say that Lu Zhaoge's shape appeared in front of her eyes under the burning fire. Zhang Xinyan, Shou Xingyan to share. Chaka Vaiku de Nolon, go protect her child. She bowed down to catch the magic of a red gas stream that emerged. Zhang Xinyan to whisper the next life. If we could not want to be my master anymore, I want to do. 2 weird bazaar stood in front of her, sounded a bazaar saying that I came here to come here. From that airflow, Lu Zhaoge sounded that anyone dared to touch my master. Zhang Xinyan to narrow her eyes to look at that light that the female monster heard so angry with the color of the color of the color of the color. The wings of fiery flew soaring. The sharp sword is full of aura. Lu Zhaoge majestic landing on the ground to create an earthquake of the body that exudes the atmosphere. Lu Zhaoge looks at Zhang asking, and Lu Zhaoge to say that the master has a lifetime, he still has to be my master. Looking at the adult NHI standing in front of me, I heard Lu Zhaoge say that. I thought that all my inner language screamed, this little girl. I don't mean that my idea is there. In the sky, thousands of fierce beasts appeared, giant centipede roar, as if screaming in Lu Zhaoge's face. The sound of a female monster relying on you and wanting to hinder us. The female monster watching Lu Zhaoge unilaterally provoked the female monster smiling at the same time, then one more body lying on the ground. At the same time, the animals and the monstrous names scream violently, the chaotic scenery. The animals have reached the level 65, 57, 59, all 61 preparing to attack. Lu Zhaoge coldly looked at their level, he smirked. Lu Zhaoge said, really very formidable that everyone is a great love for me, I will not have the enemy. Seeing the situation too. Dangerous, Zhang Xinyan to scream. Zhaowa to run quickly, these guys I can't afford to deal with it. Lu Zhaoge looks at. Lu Zhaoge to comfort the master. I don't say I will solve these things, I have my own way. She was surprised to ask for her own way. The female monster heard that when she laughed and raised her hand to hide the smile of the female monster and her own way of speaking this place within the radius of 100 miles without the breath of any great practitioner, you could have a way. Lu Zhaoge spread her hand out. Lu Zhaoge shared that we had a dream since childhood. Lu Zhaoge, his eyes full of killing intent, started to summon a blue force appearing in the palm of Lu Zhao. Gay said that it was just raising his hand to shout 1,000 people in response. So we have tried to practice patiently for many years, only for this moment. The female monster seemed to be satisfied from the centipede to look down at the female monster saying that when I summoned, I never heard the practice of you who would do this. Jiang Xinyan to put her hand on her helpless chest, and she sighed. Jiang, please. And said, Zhao Ge, I know you are trying to extend the time, but this place within a radius of 100 miles, without the breath of any great practitioner. This is the truth, that the master will die here. Lu Zhaoge shook his head and smiled, Zhao Ge that the vision was so limited to look a little further away. It took too much time to order what male standing to kill that little boy, gave us thousands of screaming wild beasts to attack Lu Zhaoge and Jiang asking Anne. Lu Zhaoge also acted. He raised his hand to use green gas to summon Lu Zhaoge to shout our army to come here. In the sky there are many behavioral windows. The great monks with the summoned beasts with the levels of the monster below have gathered all the sounds of the great spirituality rang out, because the total of thousands of matches compared to what we spent this number is hit. To see the grandmother who killed a child, it will be more famous. The army of the female monster was shocked to see 50,000 people and summoned beasts that Lu Zhaoge summoned these people, where the one who ranks is not just running away quickly. Ending the female monster invited each other to run away, leaving the army Lu Zhaoge Jiang Xinyan to take care of sweating. Lu Zhaoge sighed, even if he was skeptical about Lu Zhaoge himself, thinking about what he was just because of a virtual character, but at a time when he beat all hundreds of thousands of pocket money for half a month. He unconsciously hit Jiang's eyes and asked An to look back at him. Lu Zhaoge smiled just a few 100,000. Lu Zhaoge turned to her. He held out Lu Zhaoge to tell his master not to mind those lovers. Zhang Xinyan to smile. She grabbed Lu Zhaoge's hand gently. Zhang Xinyan to respond. Lu Zhaoge supported her to stand up because of the serious injury, Zhang Xinyan to stand unable to fall into his brother. Lu Zhaoge worriedly asked his master, Shuo Xingkan, to breathe her body weakly. The two of them stood close to Zhang Xinyan to say softly. Before finishing, Zhang Xinyan to be bewildered, when a light emitted, Lu Zhaoge disappeared before her eyes. Qiu Xingen to kneel in pain and she clung to Zhaoge. Lu Zhaoge returned to the real world. He was breathing with sweat and sweating. Lu Zhaoge lying on the sofa was frustrated and hugged him. Lu Zhaoge said that he did not know how to face her anymore. Take calmly. He tried to arrange the thought of Lu Zhaoge, but she was at most just a bunch of data stacked up. Lu Zhaoge sat dully with the sound of the phone rang. The content of an important notice of a certain fairy has spent hundreds of thousands to fight the sky, and wrote the stories of the great artists of Xuan the Sun, which has been saved by the player Lu Zhaoge. The new scene appeared Lu Zhaoge, holding a wine bottle of wine full of eyes full of thoughts. Lu Zhaoge, thinking back to the previous life, we did not dare to despise the ancestor to kill, but this life, we were different from drinking together. Looking at Zhang Xingwan to sit in front of Lu Zhaoge saying we were the same world. Zhang Xinyan to hold a bottle of wine. She glanced at the person in front of Zhang Xinyan to doubt that it was Stran, used to feel very comfortable with this person. The night gradually falling down the street to light up, the two of them stood outside the door to drink a little to bowl, making Lu Zhaoge dizzy and Lu Zhao. Lu Zhaoge waved and smiled and greeted her. Lu Zhaoge said that the good night's sleep touched her eyes made Lu Zhaoge stood dumbfounded. Qiu Xingkan to raise his hand in good night. Then Lu Zhaoge turned to leave Zhaoge thinking that only then he was normal. Zhang Xingyan to turned to her mood restlessly. Zhang Xingyan to wonder if this good night's sleep was very interesting. The scene of clouds drifting water is full of peace. Lu Zhaoge dreamed about the sun shining on the face of Lu Zhaoge bewildered. Scratching my head is full of suspicion, or looking at the scenery around Lu Zhaoge, wondering why we sleep here. Seeing Lu Zhaoge bewildered on the boat. Lin not why someone was drunk last night, and thought that he was sleeping in the clouds again. Lu Zhaoge calmly followed as the memory that he had Lu Zhaoge really faltered the post. Life of the world at the Weimao boat of the dream of the dream. Lu Dongli panicked, and suspiciously in the end of the water, the dream of 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 the dream. Lu Zhaoge stood in front of her hand waving in front of Lu Zhaoge what to think about. Lu Dongli coughed for a few hours. She was shy to bow down and responded to nothing right now. Now she is also awake, and then have something to say to you here. Lu Zhaoge stood up and stretched out. Lu Zhaoge to say anything. Lu Dongli seriously said yesterday, Mo Dongfang told me that all of them had exactly met that animal. He turned away at Lu Zhaoge saying that one of his two horns of the whole body was red. Lu Zhaoge's moment summoned the sword of any burning atmosphere appeared. The black gas surrounded Lu Zhaoge coldly grabbed the sword of any. Lu Zhaoge shouted by his eyes that appeared that gas. It seems that we are unjustly narrow. Lu Dongli crossed his arms and stood beside the Lo Dongli worried. But that beast also flew away very far, and feared that now we chase after being late. Lu Zhaoge held up the sword in front of him. He had observed the sword, Lu Zhaoge, and did not need to chase. That day we will go to get its head. 2 Nguyen HOE will be held in a certain area, only set up a secret base of the Bahung COC coordinates, which is very recently provided by the system according to the information on Lu Zhaoge, so there should definitely the other animal will appear there in that place. Lu dynamic eyes, a mouth do not believe in his hand. Looking at the sword, Lu Zhaoge said softly, "For the 9-year sword. For this moment we have learned the Stranji skills at the time of worshipping every month for it to consume the 9-year experience for the moment when the sword is drawn, we do not know what will happen. The fire of hatred burned my mind to look at the sword in the hands of Lu Zhaoge, so he felt hatred to let you live a little more." Lu Zhaoge looked at the quiet water. He smiled. Lu Zhaoge said that now Jiang's sympathy please, and he still prioritized cross more than his steadfast gaze. Lu Zhaoge implicitly confirmed that this life, when the ancestor was not worried at all already. Lu Zhaoge looks at the eyes, stared intently at the flock of fat fish swimming in front of him and wanted to split them up. Lu Dongli was startled and her hands were a bit surprised. Everything is in the power of Lu Zhaoge. Of course, from today onwards, we will make meals with his own hands, and then use the magic to control the water of thousands of fish floating in the air. Lu Dongli was full of excitement in her head, which appeared from fish to so much grilled her pieces of screaming. Return in the subject. Jiang Xinyan to sit in the room alone. She could not help but be confused. Jiang An whispered last night with Lu Cheng to drink alcohol, rarely happy like that, but also like that. Chao Xinganto, leave the bed wearing a hat on. Jiang please, and said today. Suddenly there was a knock on the door of the outside Chu, who spoke out if the senior had no Grand Master, who cooked the fish soup to call people to eat together. Chao Xinganto opened the cute queue, waving her hand. Jiang Xinganto respond to me, not to like normal dishes. I may not get used to your food, so please report. Xiaoqiu also grabbed the skirt of tears and looked at the young. Chu said that the master of the master said that if he did not bring him to Xiaoqiu, he would not be able to eat his food for a month. Senior, who asked the person, looking at the child in front of Zhang's eyes, and could hardly refuse her to sigh to accept. Jiang Xinyan and Xiaoqiu to leave the lovely Qiu first, and she followed Tu Tan. Gon thought that this was a gift of Thanksgiving, because yesterday he drank with us was just a normal family meal. The smell of food flying to the little girl Chu smelled excited about the little Chu screaming, howling a master of the master, who cooked it himself so fragrant. Zhang Xingan to enjoy the fragrance to Zhang saliva please, and wondering how attractive this scent is so attractive. In front of everyone sitting on the lunch table full of Lu Zhaoge, everyone did not have everyone with a quick Chu to run to, Xiao Chu to speak us sitting here. Witnessing that cozy meal, she suddenly smiled Jiang Xinyan to exclaim that a happy sect is not like a more family, like sect. She went to the dining table to look at Zhang's table please, but the taste is not necessarily the same. She went to Lu Zhaoge to raise her hand to invite her to sit down at the table, Lu Zhaoge, and then sit down to go down to the newly cooked fish soup. Then Zhang would like to respond to An. Thong Tan lifted his skirt to put his buttocks on the chair. Everyone was full of fish soup placed on the table, which made everyone attracted by the scent of the Chu, who shouted on the Grand Master. A bowl of fish soup is placed on a hot scent, holding a bowl of soup in Zhang's hand, and said thank you to look at the hot fish soup. Zhang Xinyan to tell himself that nothing special is just a normal fish bowl. Lu Zhaoge watched her tell her to try to see if my skills had the taste of her not Jiang, please, and to listen to the first spoon to taste. Xiaoqiu was also curious to watch her taste the small Chu soup, waiting for the result. Chou Xingan to taste the fish soup. She suddenly stopped, her eyes wide open. She could not resist, but held the soup to choose. Looking at her delicious food and drink, Lu Zhaoge smiled as the shortest way to the heart of the woman who was the Stomo Men path, that Lu Zhaoge thought of my cooking skills in her previous life, because of her, especially when she went to school. Lu Zhaoge with her hands on the table, he spoke out of her will. Jiang Xinyan to put the bowl of soup down to wipe her mouth. She shyly brought the bowl of soup towards Lu Zhaoge. Jiang Xinyan to falter another bowl. Zhaoge excitedly responded, then he volunteered to take the soup to help her. Everyone started eating and drinking. Just like that, Jiang Xinyan to stay in the subject for a few days. Xiaoqiu invited her to have dinner after herself to come to the table to wait for it. Xiaoqiu happily waited for how to eat the food by the Grand Master. Cooking Jiang please, and calmly drink tea. Lu Dongli frowned to speculate what he was, but he suddenly had a pleasure to cook, so something was very strange, was it? Because the great practitioner, she kept thinking that a person who opened his mouth was a cunning laugh and an extremely cold person. These two people were basically not the same type of person. At the end of the dong, I also guessed the eyes of the young girl who loudly understood, and then it turned out to be like that. She looked at Lu Zhaoge with an extremely happy eye for singing, because I was why he worked so hard to keep this great practice. In the end, now I am the one who needs the guidance of a great practice in the whole subject. With that innocent thought, all the determination of these potatoes of the mind of the songwriter is absolutely not satisfied. He did not know about the things running through the head of the small soot. Quickly he was confusing to think that Dong Li was so seductive, might Ten More was so martial. Zhou Xinggento looked through the beauty of Lu Zhaoge. She looked through a promotion filter like a beautiful male man who knows my taste to understand my mind. As soon as he took the jar to Jiang An, thought that this was the fact that many people out there were soulmates, that Lu Zhaoge did not know that he had become a soulmate of someone. She poured wine if she waited for a meal like this. Chou Xinggento be stopped. It is Lu Zhao to give an item and say, this is a few drops in spring, and not delicious. He immediately squeezed the water and laughed and told her to beat me. The glass of wine has added a bit of strange red. She blankly watched Lu Zhaoge. He thought about drinking, and then her admiration for me was more and more intense. This is my deep affection. Chou Xinggento take a sip. She acknowledged that the taste was much better. She thought this person was definitely my soulmate. The night is late at night, so it is often more likely to be counterproductive. The more it will be counterproductive. Lu Zhaoge tries to practice the dense spiritual energy. The more the blood is, the more unreliable that this law is. Even though it is significant, it is too effective. Lu Zhaoge holds a bear card and cursed that the group of people who have been chosen by this heaven still works anyway. There is anything by asking them to ask them. The screen lights first to let me see what you are chatting in here. Hu Yen asked if you like the fried garlic dumplings without heavenly responding to a little response and a little bit of his words. DIA asked if you like a mooncake with 1,000 layers that do not be captured. This dish is a dish of Tain, Hu Yen hoing, who responds a little bit of Lu Zhaoge grinding your teeth. Are you the main character of the world? He was annoyed to say anything in this heavenly world. Why still have to let me guide you a little? The message appears without asking how much you understand about Tunguyen Hoai. On the other side, everyone was startled and finally came here to lead the people to the survey. We must definitely answer seriously. Hu Yen answered before Tunguyen Hai. One of the oldest loving cultivation associations, as we know it, is stupid to let it exist after this ancient disaster because of the mystery even older than the history of the 4 great subjects. Lu Zhaoge exclaimed this time for so long. He thought that he could remember that in his previous life he followed Tunguyen Hoi. Lu Zhaoge nostalgic at that time. They wanted to entice us to make the facade for them, but why did we accept to become the tool of others? But after arguing with them, basically there was no information about Tunguyen Hoi. Land messages to people in the moon with a very intense worship for the purple moon, and they firmly believe that in the moon contains a type of supreme power. Just a moon can eat, a moon can be given up. He annoyed this guy. Said what the death of Nguyen Hoi did not worship Tunguyen. Maybe people worship Lam, Nguyen Lu, Zhaoge to knock on Mo Sibai. Give us some useful information to see if the person who wants to help others must excel in his role. But what he sent is just a long row. But it is enough for them to understand that this lead is dissatisfied with the information that we provide. Everyone tense. We must continue to give more useful information. DS aid that we know a great secret of Tunguyen Hoi. Lu Zhaoge curious how big the secret may be. The empowerment is not sure that it is just guessing that all of you know that the great person is half-hearted. He gritted his teeth, scolding the redundant literature, and started who did not know that. The land is afraid to lead the people. We do not know what we are about to say. If we are insulting, we know we should say or not. He laughed cleverly, knocking on the wooden card if this was not my chance. Lu Zhaoge sent a message saying that the honor of a supreme azure emperor naturally would not be swayed by anyone's slander. Those who know me will understand I have offended only the spring and autumn. This is a quote from Confucius. Spring and autumn here refers to the duties and chronicles of the Son of Heaven. The core idea is that he has done what he believes is right, and the book he wrote is for future generations. There will inevitably be differing opinions, praise and blame alike, but as long as he believes in the value of his actions, he will carry them out without hesitation, no matter what others say. Source Google. All 4 people were quiet. Yue was surprised that we were guilty of being sinful, that only Zhuan this was really generous. The 2 women widened their eyes like this. Not everyone has. The last person is not completely different from this excellent sentence that leads the style of this style. DS aid that we know the emperor of the great man because he carried his half blood of the love of the clan, so he had a purple heart. Lu Zhaoge understood. In other words, what this moon is in the heart is actually the heart of the emperor. He frowned so much that these love really want to get involved in the power of saving all the heavenly precepts of the emperor. If they achieve that, everything will be troublesome here. Lu Zhaoge knows how to save so many people who can save so many people but can also kill countless lives. He laughed cleverly, knocking on the wooden card. If the plot of this moon was so deep, like that I could do anything to hinder. I could not say anything. I could help the school gathering of your class. Do not send a message that Tunguyen Hoi was held every 3 years at many different strongholds of the next meeting on the winter solstice. Today coming here, Lu Zhaoge expects how to howl. However, you know how this news will react. They are all very tense news about Tunguyen Hoi who killed the love Tu in the sect can also exchange for the reward of those guys who still want to win the heart of Tandedong Chi. This year, they must have a little hand. Lu Zhaoge lies on the floor, comfortably a person who benefits. 4 people who feel great is the tools. He sat up and told himself that we would definitely do this again a few more times now to review his own strength. If you want to overthrow Tunguyen Hoi, you have to prepare a few more trump cards. In order to overthrow Tunguyen Hoi, you have to prepare a few more trump cards. The item in his hand is that the lower level of the lower product has been covered with a banned order now, and does not need to be promoted to. You just need to keep the level of the level. Then the other experiences will be kept until the day those people are gossiped to the site. Lu Zhaoge thought this ban. I actually only heated myself over the 9 years of the other line, just removed the sword that you will give me. A surprise that the internal test distance is 189 days. He calculated that the internal inspection was not far from before that we still need to do. Late at night at the foot of the mountain, a house still lights. The black shadow approached with a voice from the shift. He was forced to take out this consciousness, so it was easy to see. So why did the bad guys want to come here to play the game? Lu Zhaoge the main road goes into the relaxing and pouring tea. How to choose the shower when the bath is so much. He sat down at the haha bar all coincidentally only. She asked now, and what's more, Lu Zhaoge seriously asked me for the last time. I really didn't come to the training place with me again. Lu Dongli sighed and shook his head once, and then went again and wasted all the quartz spirit. A can manages, the house also does not have to know how the earth's necessities, although Momen does not have many people, but every month also spend a lot of spirit. Lu Zhaoge all the way to stop suit will not go alone. Executive training is the 7 positions of Kiev Tong in Thanchao. which is built with the purpose of speaking more simply. It is created for the disciples to practice and break through. But only the first scene of the second scene of the third scene of the 3 levels of the scenes containing the element, such as the monster agency, and many other groups, although it belongs to the breakthrough speed, has different ratings. For practitioners, practicing only benefits. And if there is a ranking, it will not be a group of flames on the fire, but there is a disadvantage, that except for the disciple of Kiev Tong to others, if you want to break through. He spoke up. But there was one thing we had to ask me 2 years ago. Lu Dongli confidently said that all 3 scenes are also like each other. Only the difficulty is different from the aspect of wanting to save money directly. On the 3rd scene is the most expensive way. Lu Daoge was startled. So 2 years ago I was in the 3rd scene. Oh, I realized I said it. Lu Dongli panicked and just missed his mouth. Lu Daoge takes me to ignore the realm of the realm. But I don't even look at the statue of the sword in the center of the examination, but we have to spend money to come in to practice the geography. She tried to escape, of course, seeing it, and then recording the swords of the first sword, of the first time the great practitioner to achieve the 9th realm of the 9th world of the heavenly world. Lu Dongli said signs that many people break through such a rare swordplay should not take out to share these 7 years. If it is soot will hide it carefully and slowly look at it. Lu Chaoge flicked her forehead so I can only stay in the mountain and Kiev Tong can set up a sect. He pointed out what they searched was not the benefit of not the eternal existence of Kiev Tong, but the existence of such a religious belief that we also admire the cheeks of this scene too lovely. Lu Daoge thinks that the sword statue we want to see and try and the type of rankings must have the names of the people who are chosen by the other heavenly people, waiting for the other players to be so staggered to them, they can know how to wear this mysterious subject. If they do not rely on such strong people, all will not see what we wear, but we will not mention the last standing of our last standing again of any more. You suddenly realize it, right? Lu Daoge glanced at the sharp eyes. She was a little scared, stuttering and asking why. He squeezed the wall on the wall, blushing and embarrassed. He frowned and broke through the disciple. This sentence is absolutely not in the speculation, too disappointed, sweating and answering. Ha ha ha, how can I just in the 3rd scene 2 years ago, ha ha ha. Lu Daoge interrogated question and question. She tried to smile brightly. Always he accepted the answer to turn to leave, and then loudly breathed a sigh of relief. Recalling the scene, just like the little quote of the pillow of the girls in the 13. Girl, she was extremely excited. What are we thinking about next time? We will not be polite to the shift like this. We are just brother. The next day, the sun was also close to the top of the mountain. Lu Daoge glides in the air to say that today is convenient to set out to the sword Tong to control a ranking. The big wind suddenly hindered his journey. He looked up and saw a giant mount. The person sitting on it was Jiang Xinyan to ask where to go. Lu Daoge responded to the training of the sword Tong ANH's geography, thinking that she would not be interested in this way, so I did not let her know. Suddenly Jiang Xinyan to speak out. He was extremely surprised. 2 people sitting on the mountain, fluttering on the clouds. Lu Daoge peeked at the woman next to her to silently tell her the cold personality is not the type of person who likes to watch this funny game. The umbrella turned out to be so confident that she concluded that she was not interested in the practice of her geography. She was interested in me. Unfortunately, that self-attachment was not wrong, Jiang Xinyan, to glance at Lu Daoge. Inexplicably, this person was born so beautiful through the eyes of the lovers like him now, no different from the angel lower. Blue eyes indifferently glanced over. Lu Daoge smiled slightly and asked what was wrong with my face. She hurriedly turned to get embarrassed. He took advantage of the example. Rarely she looked at herself once, like this was not equal to talking to her again. Lu Daoge asked the religion to say, if tomorrow we break the breakthrough, there is a breakthrough. Jiang would like to answer, and of course, possible. You can confidently ask the problem so you think how much I will stand in the rankings. Jiang Xinyan to show a shyness that did not dare to face Lu Daoge Jiang, asking, and to think that he asked me what I meant, what we did not like to think of other people's thoughts. Just answer that, really. Jiang Xinyan to look up to the sky to exude a beautiful atmosphere. The higher, the better. Lu Daoge heard that more excitement to reveal the holy angle of Lu Daoge without hesitation, but it seemed like it was as high as possible. They Lai's dong appeared right before the eyes of the sword training to practice the geography of the bar. The eagle wingspan followed Jiang to An and Lu Daoge to fly straight, according to the light, looking light source in front of her eyes. He could not hide the excitement of Lu Daoge praised they Lai's, who liked it to Jiang please, and looked at him with a suspicious face. Lu Daoge uses a sphere of a water sphere that appears in the palm of Lu Daoge to ask the friendly to go to gather to Jiang, please, and also get the water ball that attracts Jiang to An. After that, the 2 of them and the eagles flew to they Lai's, moving a dazzling light. Jiang Xinyan to look at the water sphere in his hand. Jiang Xinyan to wonder the power of the star of Sao, lies to the great ancient tree that had become a big. The light emanating from the trunk under the root appeared 2 dragon statues to guard. The gatekeeper came out to welcome the guests. He spoke up you to check. Lu Daoge calmly responded rightly, but her daughter who had the 6th sense of Jiang asked and, as soon as I ended, I resounded in the ancient body of the battlefield to realize that Jiang's abnormalities asked An to hurriedly perform the ceremony to kneel in front of the ancient tree that was glowing Jiang, asking An to say that, Xuan. The son, Jiang, Xinyan. Looking at the eyes on the old tree, it made the 2 of them surprised, and uttered the old tree. Lu Daoge was a lot of cunning but still deceived to look at the old tree in front of Lu Daoge a little discontent. Horribly, we don't even detect the old tree to work as a gateway to the gate. It is also on the 5th scenes but even more than Jiang please. And this is the fortune of Kiev Tong. Chen Minru greeted the two who want to go to practice the geography. If they are the disciples under the sword of the sword, Tong will be reduced by the 5 parts of the male disciple standing behind, howling his soul. Frowned and asked, who said the 5 parts of Chen Min lulled the responsibility of her brother's mind to pity this person to look beautiful until this stage is mine. Mine, 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 I mine, 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 during. Lu Chaoge holds the other name of the two. Word name Momen. Lu Chaoge confesses the Grand Master of Lu Chaoge. The male disciple listened to the disdainful expression for Lu Chaoge, a smirking smile that was just a second scene, and also climbed up the chair of the master in the opposite of this name to attract the female disciple of her cheeks, flushed with heart, and flew constantly praising the young, but it was a must. Young master. Lu Chaoge took advantage of hunting. See just now that you said to be reduced in the 5 parts, but I did not make the old drunkenness in front of him. Being faced with Lu Chaoge Chen Minru, there was no more integrity. She hurriedly said that the male disciple stood behind, hurriedly stopped him frowning and shouting this monk. On the side of Chen Minru, still immersed in this beauty, he laughed at me. He laughed at me. There was no need for the beauty of the two of them to easily approve the censorship of Chen Minru. Lu Chaoge looked at Zhang, please. And she was preparing to drink Lu Chaoge to remind the friend here to wait for me for a while and then go back to Zhang asking on. The male disciple looked at Lu Chaoge and Chen Minru. He could not hide his anger and clench his teeth and go back, but with his strength, he could not even go through the first and handsome what the monkey is. Fluttering the opportunity, only 2 people. Chen Minru introduced me to the name, Chen Minru, Lu, Mon call me Mien as well. Then that is the first place of moving the first rank. Lu Chaoge happily respond. Then Lu Chaoge turned and walked into the challenge of Chen Minru, screaming at Lu Chongmon. Lu Chaoge gently stroked his chin and sighed proudly. Lu Chaoge knew that in this world there was certainly no one who did not love the beauty. They did not meet me. It was true that the day of the sea Lu Chaoge walked into the first door of a yellow color that was gradually swallowing him. Lu Chaoge looks at the whole scene, that the water in front of Lu Chaoge has been questioned. Appearing a wooden leader to welcome him, Lu Chaoge crossed his hand behind his back, uttered the first wooden content of the first round of the level of checking the sword, the stronger. The wood fell as much as it could be, 30 degrees. Lu Chaoge hands again, air with blue, with black appears that he does not leave the head of the wooden head. Lu Chaoge assessing that if we remember correctly at that time under the sword of Yu Yue, the wooden head immediately fell down to the sword of strong wood. Heading down a few seconds it turned back at that strange scene that appeared. It also made Yu Yue rise up to have a reputation in the younger generation. Outside a mirror reflecting the process of Lu Chaoge, how many eyes are acting at him. Shang Xinggan to look at the shape of him, where you can do it here. The male disciple smirked the way the male disciple mocked silently. You dreamed and overcome the first level. And Chen Minru looked with the admirable eyes. Returning to Lu Chaoge, he slashed a blow at the head of the wooden head. Lu Chaoge coldly said, it was just a test of time to take time to do. Witnessing. Lu Chaoge the male disciple stood and folded his arms and smiled. The male disciple did not even bother to remove the shell. It was true that the whole place said that in the opposite of Chen Min Lul he screamed so handsome. After the blow of his head, the wooden head is still normal to turn in black. The male disciple outside saw that scene, then hugged his Stomo men to smile to the shape of haha, smiling all the way. Why did he have a useless sword like this? But Chen Min lulled his feet as if he uttered so he didn't have to do that. Zhang Xingyan could not hide the surprise Zhang Xingyan to say, the head of the wood was slashed 2 times to glow. After that, the head of the wood was in half falling down to Lu Chaoge. Chen Minru and the male disciple stood with their mouths agape, unable to believe their eyes. Chen Minru wondered how he had actually managed to cut through such a special type of wood. Zhang Xingyan she smiled gently. Zhang Xingyan to speak in an interesting enjoyment. After handling Lu Chaoge wooden head smiled softly to the next level. Observing the testing process of Lu Chaoge, all of his disciples were amazed at his level of power. He made the female disciples collapse before him. The comment was so strong that a gentle sword soothes. It has even broken all the best records so far. Who is the sword with this power? So how can the third scene be able to? On the side of Lu Chaoge, he leisurely pushed the atmosphere. He heard the words of the disciples outside. Lu Chaoge, smiling, a gentle sword flying from the wooden man, made from the type of wood, not like a small leaf. The door of the system appears to congratulate him for successful surpassing the level of a reward received of 1,000 experience points. Lu Chaoge recalled his first slice just now that our sword is just containing our strongest gas, including the strength of the country, and the idea. There was a sound emanating from the head of the wooden saying that at that time I just wanted to kill me. So the first wooden person cried, sobbing. Lu Chaoge smiled satisfied. This is what the leading students called the gentle victory, and the truth are using all the power. Zhang Xingyan not to take his eyes off the mirror of this person who really formed a sword and then earned the idea of the sword. 2. The executioner. The injury of Thong 2, which was always 3 or 4 conditions needed to get in the subject. Observing the person, Lu Chaoge, she still could not believe that Zhang's eyes asked Anne to be skeptical, but he was only in the second scene. The sound emanated from the ancient rose-colored rose. Xiang Xingen to see what she looked up with her eyes and stared at the old tree. Xiang Xingen to suspect, even the ancient senior also felt horrified with its ability to see everything. Zhang Xingen to suspect, even the ancient senior also felt horrified with its ability to see everything. Looking at the 8 trigrams, the yellow glow kept observing him in his hand, holding any of the eyes and the eyes of the ancient tree, he did not know for what reason. Lu Zhaoge leisurely entered the 2nd level of the golden air. Looking at the scenery in front of the majestic mountains and mountains, there is a bird flying, making Lu Zhaoge a little surprised. This is the secret of 2 stars. Looking around Lu Zhaoge, the secret of the 2nd level is in the picture that is hard to prevent. Suddenly, the scene before his eyes disappeared instead of a floating battlefield that opened. Lu Zhaoge and sighed. It was so peaceful. And outside, the female disciples continues her simp regime, and other disciples continue to discuss this name that has entered the 2nd level of the examination of the geography. And then, this test is completely different from the test of the 1st level. This time, he will have to cry out, "I really want that marshal to fall into the water and wet." And outside, the female disciples continues their ship regime, and the other disciples continue to discuss this name. They have entered the 2nd level of the examination of the geography. And then this test is completely different from the test of the 1st level. He will have to cry out, "We really want that marshal to fall into the water and wet." He conceded the scenery around the high mountains. Lu Zhaoge thought about it for a long time. It seemed that just going into the 1st line was formed with 2 mountains, and this stone the challenge would end. Do not hesitate to eliminate the 1st stone. The engine is started to appear quickly. Lu Zhaoge smiled at him. A little regret for guessing the gravity. It turned out to be a challenge. Outside, the disciples still attentively observing the process of Lu Zhaoge, not taking their eyes off the person who has the attraction of gate and women. The voice of the discussion still keeps the test. Hit this test into the mastery of the spiritual energy. If the spiritual energy is not strong at this level, will be gravity of these green stones, consuming the power to death, before there are many 3rd scenes that are not hard to end, but still hard to end, but still hard to end, but still hard to try to be hard to end, but still hard to try to go to the great man. This level does not make it difficult for Lu Zhaoge to be stuck by him walking away from the gently stone slabs. Lu Zhaoge bin said that I still think it is so terrible, but the choice is more than usual. 4 years just consuming a bit of spiritual energy. I want to run here, who says we have a lot of spiritual energy like this, but looking at Lu Zhaoge walking quickly on each stone half, wait, how could the disciples stirred up? How could it feel like this small son was like choosing things in the market? How many blankly eyes looking up at the mirror to sweat? The male disciples increasingly shocked. This guy is not cheating. But on the contrary, the female disciples such as losing integrity, but praising is not so handsome. Lu Zhaoge walked to the last stone. He stood motionless and squeezed behind his back, full of Lu Zhaoge's manner. So why haven't he felt anything hard to go up? The player has nothing happened when Lu Zhaoge enjoys the atmosphere for it to be pure in the forest of the wind, and the mountain are very comfortable. Suddenly appeared sharp sword leaves. Lu Zhaoge looked at the sword leaves, preparing to attack the UK very close. Lu Zhaoge frowned with cold eyes. The scene or has come to the male disciples excitedly crying out, and the forest of the sea swords, all the ones that turn into a blade to attack directly, as if the rain and the female disciples were sweating and praying to the great master of the great master. The male disciple stood next to say, "No one could be peaceful out there, even if you Yue." Zhang Xinyantou stand silent. She had a bit of expectation for this time. He attacked except for the last sword. We haven't seen his sword at the right time, to see what sword he will use to respond to this challenge, to return this challenge. Lu Zhaoge gently walked a few ways to sword. It was the assessment of swordsmanship. Regrettable that my swordplay. Lu Zhaoge stood in the middle of the rain to earn a white color surrounding him. Lu Zhaoge judged that it was just a normal attack. The content was updated with a regular attack. 1. A regular sword of 2 regular swords. Each sword generated 150% to 200% of a simple and fast slashing damage to 150% of slow slashing sword damage to produce 200% of damage. Lu Zhaoge continuously used strong swords to prevent the attack of the sea leaf of sword from a young age, worshipping and studying pure swordsmanship. There even the system is considered to be level. At that time, to go to a level we took 10,000 points of experience, and even the death level, it only takes 3 to 50,000 points. Each sword leaf is cut off quickly. Lu Zhaoge found that the muscle is also worth. After a while, the sword leaves were divided into the ground. He took the sword standing in the middle of the forest of Lu Zhaoge, telling anyone who could deny a normal blow, but the damage was very high, but on the outside of your face, everyone is shocked to sweat and talk more and more, so the monster unexpectedly, his swordsmanship is so sharp. From Jiang An asked. And to silently observe the movement of Lu Zhaoge Jiang, please. And commented that there was no rule without any binding him, he was just swinging and slashing. This was his sword. Why was surprising? Zhaoge is in front of a strange legal battle. He reviewed from one turn from the shape to its nature, and then thought that the secret room could be turned into a flower shape to see the appearance of himself. I was reflected in front of Zhaoge again, with self, attachment and strangely. Here, there is only one example that we want us to admire. Our face is really handsome as tiger. Zhaoge suddenly discovered something when he looked closer to him. But Zhaoge immediately squeezed his hand, and his face grimo-mend in the tone of his discontent. So this door was so that the curtain made the face of the star's face. Suddenly the mirror cracked, the reflective image inside brings a strange feeling. Then a black hole opened in the middle of the pressure mirror emanating. Because of the strong shock, Zhao Ge quickly stretched the distance. As well as taking the goods to defend the goods here, the reflective shadow suddenly jumped out. He seemed to confront the confrontation. Zhao Ge thought that it was interesting that this gate was a victory for himself. Zhao Ge smiled slightly. If so, everything was simple. He transformed the sword into an energy attacking towards the other body inherently promoted to win you, but so long. Zhao Ge waved one hand, the poster in front of using the sword to stop. But right after that was a heart pounding. Zhao Ge stood behind the back of the black body that silently said that this is our difference, although the capacity is completely the same. But what skills use in the opportunity to determine the strength of a person's strength? Sorry, you're just like me, but it's not that I have a quick attack that has just been called a spiritual style, just that its owner will open an opponent will immediately dissolve into a cloud of smoke, and notice? Before the fellow of Lu Zhao Ge, everyone who finished listening was unexpectedly so gentle. Everyone is going to ask something. He responded to Lu Zhao Ge the first ranking of Tantu. The two people were able to be heartbroken again. At the top of the realms of the 2 and 3 are Yu Yue brother. But the realm, because Yu Yue brother feels unnecessary, so he did not participate more than the Grand Master of this subject. The 2 classes were unexpectedly shortened by half of the Mo Men, a small sect that did not expect to have such a scary hidden dragon. However, there are still girls like the lady below showing admiration for the first time we met him. He felt that this Grand Master was extremely special. There was the Thai man who practiced the boys. Tangon also silently proud Zhao Ge. Suddenly she was startled strangely what this feeling was. Happy. Why we were happy, because of others. Zhao Ge's image immediately appeared in the mind of Tangon, which made her suspect it was probably because we saw him as a soulmate. The system shows a notice to congratulate him for successful training. Not seeing any additional comments, Zhao Ge is a bit disappointed not to mention the award. This means that the system's reward will work with the last idea of swordplay. Zhao Ge walked through that yellow gate easily. He has reached the last place to sword the ball, but the rock in front of him had a wide crack in the middle of Zhao Ge silently guessed the sword. It is a trace left by the first religious life. If you are a sword that looks straight at this sword, more than 3 times will discover its special feature. There are people who break through in this place with people who practice swordsmanship in this place. There are people who train their minds in this place. Lu Zhao Ge easily realized what he had looked at this miraculous sword. More than 3 times later, he secretly said that this sword... What is this game? The old memory rushed back to Lu Zhao Ge to realize that his eyebrows furrowed. His mother. A pale rose branch fell to the new speech, bringing the palm of the hand to help it. She looked up and looked at the big tree in front of her eyes and called their seniors. Suddenly, the voice from the tree rang out of her little girl. And how did he know each other? Tan Gon looked up at the tree from slowly these seniors that had to start from a beast Jiang Xinyan to seriously tell the story of his acquaintance with Lu Zhao Ge. After going through contact this time, I feel familiar with him, extremely comfortable. We have considered a soulmate of human life. Ancient hears that teasing is just a soulmate. Tan Yan nodded. Right, so senior to see him as a soulmate, actually. After the bizarre statement, she thought how strange this ancient seniors were thanks to this strange. Again, the words that other subjects told Ms. Tanangon also quickly find the love of her life immersed in the light of love, to accept the thing that love can be warm, not only the heart, but also the body. She briefly thinks the old tree in front of the star is somewhat similar to those guys, right? The old tree seemed to feel a little happy. The little girl soon understood her mind. If there was one day she did not necessarily deserve him. Tanangon did not understand what he said. She tried to ask the seniors to attach seriously him. Ancient did not answer that question but said if she was chosen to seem to be intensive at all later. Tanangon still does not understand what to choose. The old tree did not respond anymore. He fell asleep silently. Tanangon proved curiosity in the end that he wanted to say to me. On the side of Lu Zhao Ge, he is wondering why ordinary attacks are normal attacks. So he also knows this trick to know this technique. He looked up at the slash on the rock, but this is somewhat coincidentally two-shaped. Lu Zhao Ge closed his eyes and thought that his swordplay was transmitted by a small palace to whether she had something from the first sword of Ton. If she had chit the purple moon chapters that still have many dharma and realms of real power, is a riddle still skeptical with origin, with the first genius of the first generation. At this point, Lu Zhao Ge felt interested in him. He laughed softly on his head with a very smooth sitting, if it was the first sword of the first life, so it costs a bit of experience. Anyway, strong is only temporary, but hiding the new talent is permanent. According to Lu Zhao Ge's wishes, the system is conducting a ranking with your ability to pass through this, which will affect your final reward standard. Review your rank. Levels. With Lu Zhao Ge is still something too new. He touched the test and thought that he had never heard of a previous life at the same time with this rank. The system immediately shows the S-level reward, depending on the situation that receives a type in the third ranking inheritance of the first life, and the powers to buy the specific item of Zhao Ge, not thinking that he will be so happy to say that. However, the system is easy to eat, so that the emergency reminder is based on the contradiction between your condition and the third ranking inheritance of the first chosen. Zhao Ge angrily cursed his mother. But because the aura of the main character Zhao Ge is still more favored for compensation, you can own more and more power to buy special items. Zhao Ge happily returned to ask for good health. In front of any items, it is really valuable that makes it difficult for people to choose Zhao Ge, without the exception to the first time reduction of the first life Kiev Ton, which must not be bad, because they were not both. Zhao Ge said that the male and female was left and right to choose the left. The item furnace opened inside revealed a dazzling light. A roll of mail and letters have not been translated by Google. The notice system you have received the lineage of the first Kiev Ton. Kiev Sword Dharma Thanman immediately educated. Zhaoga accepted the security and then said that the purple level of purple is a short step, which is the top of the Orangi level. But he suddenly remembered that he was in the game of the previous life of Thanman. Not the biggest guys of Yu Yue. The image of Yu Yue attacking his subconsciousness appears to Zhaoga brother to support a very strong type of Mai. Then Zhaoga will stand still in a calm place to respond. So Zhaoga immediately closed this cheap additional item only 5,000 values of learning experience. Thangman does not mean this sword is slow, but because it is extremely fast to earn the sound to the back.